And if you're all set, we're good to go. So we'll call the meeting to order for June 18th, 2024. This meeting is on the Hopkinton Select Board. This meeting of the Hopkinton Select Board is being held both in person and remotely using the video conference platform Zoom. All members participating in the meeting are present in the meeting room, except one. The public has the option of attending in person here at Town Hall or via Zoom using the link posted in this meeting's agenda. This meeting is being recorded. If we could begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, item number 2 on the agenda this evening. We have a full agenda, by the way, folks, as I'm sure you all saw. We're going right up until 9 o'clock, so we'll try to keep it moving as best we can. A lot of good things to cover. Item number 2 is public forum. Residents are invited to share ideas, opinions, or ask questions regarding town government. Do we have anyone here this evening? Please.
I have a meeting to get to.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Beth Malloy, 190 Lumber Street.
Hi, Beth.
I know that you guys will be deciding on the Horribles Parade tonight, and I was talking to Ken, and I said, you know, it being America the Beautiful, perhaps it could be just a 4th of July parade. That it could be just a 4th of July parade, because the Horribles Parade can poke fun at your neighbors, and we've had an awful lot of interesting things happening in our town in the last couple of years, and I would hate to see anybody's family or people hurt by some of these floats. And that's my biggest concern. So maybe if we just get rid of it being a Horribles Parade and just make it a 4th of July parade. And I'm not new to town, so you can't say, oh, she's new. Been here half my life. So, you know, it's just a feeling I have because of the tension in the town right now. So I hope you take that into consideration.
Great.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, sir. Name and address, please.
Ken Weissmantle, 145 Ash Street. The parade permit is on the agenda for tonight. I was pleased to see the positive comments from the police, fire, and DPW. I'd like to thank Dan McIntyre, who's providing the trophies for the parade. The parade is open to all. It's a wonderful opportunity to express your First Amendment opportunities. We have 3 rules of the parade that I've mentioned the last couple times I've been here. 1, no hate speech, no obscenities, and no water balloons. We gather at the Town Common at 11:30. Parade will kick off at noon. So we're looking forward to seeing everyone. And changing topics. I support forming a DPW advisory committee. Besides being elected as Water and Sewer Commissioner in town, DPW Commissioner, I'm serving my 3rd term on the Water Resources Committee that is needed to approve any connection to the MWRA. I worry when I hear town manager reports that the design is 30% complete, when the town and our consultants have not sat down with the Water Resources Commission staff to figure out what information is needed to be submitted. It's a very long and complicated approval process. From this point on, we would be doing very fast if we got to the point where the commission was ready to start its statutory approval process, which is 90 days. Typically, at this point, it takes over 2 years to get to where we need to get before we make any decisions. So how do you know what you're designing if you don't know how much water you're going to be allowed to or convey, or whether or not our current sources are determined to be viable sources? I mean, that's not our opinion, but we have to persuade them that if we want to get rid of a well or our connection with Ashland as to why that isn't a viable source in the future and why that should get changed. The probability of getting $2.7 million or million gallons a day out of the WRC is very slim, let's put it that way. So it's 2 years to go. There's a lot of information that needs to be provided. I'm talking to staff at the commission. I was surprised that we aren't a lot further along in that conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I could.
Please.
Jim Mirabile, 10 Ledgestone Drive, in support of the Horribles Parade. I think it's an opportunity for us to, since COVID, get back to a little bit of normalcy in town with the parade. It's something we've done for many, many years, as I think all of you are aware. It's not just a Hopkinton thing. It's throughout, certainly New England. And I think it's an opportunity for us to maybe not take ourselves quite so seriously, with some of our town politics. So we did put out guidelines, or we will put out guidelines, and we'll be strict in adhering to those. And again, I think it's an opportunity for us to take a step forward as a town. Thank you.
Please.
Hi, I'm Amy Groves, 2 College Street. I am the chair of the Hopkinton Democratic Town Committee, but speaking on my own behalf, if we want to have a fun parade for everybody, make everybody happy, keep having a parade, let's have a July 4th parade. If people want to dress up funny, that's fine too. The idea that this is going to calm things down and make people happier seems a little odd to me because the Republican Town Committee is sponsoring it. I think the Parks Department asked them if they would also invite us if we wanted to sponsor it, and I didn't get an invitation. So it does seem like a partisan-led thing, which seems odd to me. I didn't plan on speaking about this tonight, but just happened to walk in. Honestly, let's have a fun kind of thing. Let's let the kids dress up. Let's let everybody dress up if they want to. But it really should be a July 4th kind of thing, and it should be done by the whole town. Maybe next year, let's get everybody involved. Something like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else?
Excuse me, can I answer the?
So we can't get into a back and forth, Jim. That wouldn't be appropriate. So just we'll do our thing here, okay? Sorry about that. Anybody else? All right, everybody good with that? We'll move on from public forum to item number 3, which is the consent agenda. The consent agenda contains 3 items. The minutes from the May 21st, 2024 meeting, the parade permit application for the Horribles Parade that was just mentioned here. Petitioners are here. And then item 3, accepting a gift. The select board will consider accepting a donation of $100 from the Hopkinton Democratic Town Committee to the public library to be used for the purchase of books on anti-racism. Would anyone like to break any of these 3 items out?
I would.
And that would be?
That would be the parade permit.
Okay, we'll break that one out. Anything else to be broken out? Okay. With that, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda for items A and C, the minutes and accepting of the gift.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, items A and C have passed, and we'll move now to item B in the consent agenda, the parade permit application. Ms. Lafreniere.
I am not for the parade permit. When I first came to town, I loved it, but they stuck to issues and issues only. When we had the revaluation, it was an outhouse worth $1 million on the truck, and when we got cable and we decided not to have any porno stations, there was a Playboy bunny on a truck or something, and they were funny. And when people did funny things, then they were used, but people did it first. But I have had a lot of people tell me they've been hurt by things that have been innuendo and things that have been done on some of the floats and vehicles and things that have singled out individuals without actually singling them out, but enough so you knew who they were. And I really, if we're going to continue something like this, we have to stick to issues, and we can't bring in any personalities. I think that just defeats the purpose. And I came from another town. I actually won a Horribles Parade in that town years ago, and they've stopped because they said it got away from being funny and innuendo, and it got into personality, and people got hurt. And I have already had people call me and tell me that that is what has happened to them. And so I would really like to see, I mean, I go to the Cape in the summer, and they have a parade, and it's all the kids and the baby carriages and the bicycles, and they all get dressed up, and they have a parade like that. And I'd much rather see that than the Horribles Parade. I'm sorry, but that's just how I feel about it.
Mr. Mann, anything on this?
Can I speak later?
Sure.
I'm gathering some information.
Amy?
Yeah, I guess we haven't done this since 2019, I think is when I looked it up. And I just wanted to make sure that everything is in order. I share Mary Jo's concerns, too, that there'll be personal attacks. And I appreciate the theme is America the Beautiful, and they're going to not allow profanity, so that's great. But anyway, so the insurance is covered, and the police detail will be paid for, and everything that the permitting team wants?
Yes.
There won't be, is that, okay.
Now, I had a question about the insurance. They're under Parks and Rec's insurance?
Yes, if the town is a co-sponsor of an event, it's covered by town insurance.
Okay, because I mean, even Polyarts, everybody there has to have their own insurance, and the farm stand and everything has to have their own.
Because it's not
And this is the first time I've heard of the town partnering with somebody and paying for their insurance.
Yeah, Polyarts is not a town event, but for example, the Pride Parade is sponsored in part by the town, and that is covered.
Okay.
Amy?
Let's see, I think that is it. So everything will be covered. And will Parks and Rec staff be there too to assist and make sure everything's under control? No? Okay.
Yeah, so we're planning on, staffing up the event. So I don't have a head count on it from Parks and Rec.
So to be clear, for those that are not in the room, the Parks and Rec director is in the back of the room shaking his head no, that Parks and Rec will not be involved in the parade. But I think the answer to your question, the HRTC chair said that
Providing
they're going to
volunteers.
provide some people. Whatever. Okay. Is that a fair statement for everybody?
I'm sorry.
I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but I don't want to get into too much back and forth either. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we answer the question.
Yeah. You good? Okay, great. Hang on one sec, please. Joe.
So kind of like Amy's thought, my understanding of this is when we approve these permits for parades and stuff, we want to make sure, police, fire, DPW signed off on that. They've all endorsed it, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so then from there, I agree with what has been talked about, right? Nothing should be personal attacks. I think Mr. Weissmantel described the rules, no hate speech, obscenities, water balloons, because this should be no personal attacks. But beyond that, how is it in our jurisdiction to dictate what content goes out there? Because it kind of seems like it's stepping on top of free speech a little bit, because I haven't heard of anything that's going to be in there, so I'm just not sure how we handle that.
We have options.
Well, I'd love to, but I'd love to hear specifically, because we're approving a permit, so
We
inside
can
that.
have a kids parade, we can have a 4th of July parade, we can have a lot of other things, but we don't have to
But if
tear people down and talk about people.
No,
We can make sure it's just issues.
again, I'm not supporting tearing people down at all, no personal attacks, but I'm just not sure how we censor content from our position in
Well, if
approving
we're
a permit.
sponsoring the parade and we're paying for the insurance and all of that, then we should have a say in what kind of content is in it.
Mr. Mann?
I'm honestly learning of the vibes on both sides, and I do have a couple of questions. I think Amy asked the question, I wasn't clear. So the Park and Rec and the town is sponsoring through through covering the insurance. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So we are involved in providing the support and the foundational infrastructure for the parade, and RTC is organizing it or sponsoring for, overseeing it. Is that the right assumption? Okay. So one question, I agree with all that's been said, and I am for free speech, and certainly 4th of July is something for everyone in the nation, in the town, and great day to celebrate. But hearing some of the public comments, I wanted to ask, how would you handle, certain tensions should they arise, or certain personal, I think Joe mentioned there shouldn't be personal attacks, but what would be the governance model? Providing the freedom of speech is, of course, what we all support, but I'm not clear on that. I know you mentioned about profanity and a couple other things. Can you elaborate on that, or do we know that?
Guys, please join us at the table as the applicants now and not during public comment. And I think we can do it this way, be a little bit better. Everyone can hear you.
Well,
So Mr. Mann had a couple questions.
First of all, this is not the first year that the town's provided insurance for this parade. When the McIntyres organized it, when the Holdens organized it, when there was a requirement to have insurance, they partnered with Parks and Rec. So this is not the first time. It's always been kind of that way since there was an insurance requirement at the parade. Let's see. The other question was, how do we police it? Well, if we have three judges, and the parade gets started off, and people get a number to get going on it. You don't get to get in line to get on the parade if you have obscenities or hate speech on your float, and that's how it gets, I'll say, policed.
Can I ask a question through the chair?
Sure.
Would you consider adding to your guidelines no personal attacks, that people could attack issues but not people? I know you can't control, it would just be a guideline, but.
That's really hard to, I'm going to say hard to enforce per se, but, in order to, you're talking to one of the judges here. I'm not going to be a judge. We have a member of HCAM and also Hop News to be judges, and, I'm just hoping that, they will award prizes correctly. It's, I've been a subject on the Democratic Town Committee float at least 3 or 4 times. I remember Mr. Pratt and I were on the back of a town meeting one making fun of the fact that Joe Pratt and I spoke a lot at one of the town meetings back in the day, but,
Mr. Mann, sorry, you were still.
I think I got a lot of good answers, but I'm not very clear, so I'll get to it as I heard from the public comments. And I attended one, I enjoyed it. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I take advantage of the holidays during this time, so I go out with my family and don't get to attend all the time. But the question or the concerns I heard was it may create tension, and it may, given some of the situation in town, could it be exploited to divide or create further tension among the residents? And it's very hard to kind of govern that way. And again, it's a balancing act. We want to make sure we have the freedom of speech, but at the same time, as town leaders, we would be, of course, for harmony, for building unity and having an event that everyone enjoys, nobody gets hurt or feels hurt, and it's a joyful event, not a event that can be exploited. And you may not, or of course you don't mean it or want it to be, but the question is, how do we ensure that?
I think that you're right. It's an event that people have fun with. It's called, political satire. And what we can do to police it, again, I think we have clear guidelines. and people will have fun with other folks. And then my experience has been people move on. So, I think where it's something that we've always done and we're trying to reinstate, and we sort of were asked to pick this up and run with it as the HRTC, and that's when we got involved with it again a year ago. And by the way, nobody approached me to participate in it as well. So I think it's something that, again, we should embrace as a community. We've done it in the past. We're not the only community in the state or New England that does it. And it's an opportunity to bring back a little bit of a historical, spin to our community.
What's up? So a couple of thoughts from my vantage point. One, I've been on some of those floats, not physically, but I've been abused on some of those floats in the past. I'm not here generally on the 4th of July. I'm on the Cape with my family, and I'm looking forward to that. It happens. I got over it. But I think back to what was going on in South Boston for years and years with the St. Patrick's Day Parade and the court battles and the free speech issues and all that went into that and the division that caused in the city of Boston for a long, long time. I'd hate to see that play out here. So we can call it whatever we want, but once we have a parade sanctioned, whatever people pull up in their floats, they can go. So calling it a horribles parade is encouraging a certain approach, perhaps, but calling a parade or voting a parade creates the opportunity for people to exercise their free speech. And they're going to dress me up like they did one time and I looked ridiculous. Okay, but that's what they can do. So if we get into the business of trying to regulate people's expression of thought, I think we're opening up a huge can of worms for the community. And I just don't think, given all that we've seen, at least in my lifetime in Massachusetts with parades, the division it can cause until they found a solution that works, and frankly, just open it up to everybody, which is what we're talking about, it was a big problem. So I hear your concerns, and I've been on those floats, and I get it. But at the end of the day, I do believe this is a free speech issue. And I do believe that if we say no for that reason, we open ourselves up to a problem. And I think we've had enough problems in town, and we got enough engagement with the legal staff right now that I would encourage us, if we want to change the name of it, I'm okay with that, because it's going to be a parade, and the parade will be what the parade will be. But we can't say to folks, you can go and you can't. I like your message, I don't like yours. I think that's wrong. That's un-American in my view. So with that, what's the board want to do?
I would move to approve the permit for the parade. Open to your suggestions of changing the name if people feel the need, but I don't want to censor free speech.
Okay, there's a motion on the table to approve the parade permit as submitted. Is there anybody going to second that motion?
Through the chair, you mentioned about the name, so are we also proposing or asking the name change, or what are we doing with that?
Is that in your motion, Joe?
That was not in there.
So we have that motion right now. Maybe we can come back to that in a second. But the motion right now is to approve it as submitted. Is that correct?
Yeah, but I'm open to suggestions.
Do we want to amend it for the name? Because we heard and we are also talking about it, something else here.
I don't know if we have the right to change the name if the applicant doesn't want to, right? I don't know. I do tend to think that because they meet all the requirements of the insurance and the detail, and the similar how it was done in 2019 in partnership with Parks and Rec, I do think that we probably need to approve it, but I think we've all expressed our reservations of how it might go this year. So
Would that be a second?
I guess so.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the table to approve it as submitted. Any further discussion on the motion on the table?
Well, can we give our strong guidance? I know they don't have to, that we really would hope that they would try to stress the positive theme, which I know they have tried to do the America the Beautiful, and avoiding the personal attacks, the obviously hate speech, the profanities, even though I don't think you can really stop that if it happens anyway. I appreciate the emphasis on the positivity, if possible.
I would echo that to the chair. I think the goal is, to be positive and celebrate and have some satire, but making sure it's, and we all know what that would mean within the construct. And you already have a governance model or policing, whatever you call it, with the rules that you have. And every parade has some rules, right? It's not, but definitely for freedom of speech and celebration and bringing the community together. So good luck to you. I would approve.
Any further comments on the motion on the table? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it is unanimous and so passes. The parade permit has been approved. Thank you all. Item number 4, change of manager, Section 15, retail wine and malt liquor, malt alcohol license, All Town Fresh, 92 West Main Street. Is the applicant here by chance? Do we need the applicant here, Elaine?
Someone's hand is raised on Zoom. Do we know?
I'm sorry?
Someone's hand is raised on Zoom. I don't know if they're the applicant.
Oh, okay, there we go. Thank you. That infamous Zoom. Is the applicant for All Town Fresh on Zoom?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman. Hopefully you can hear me. This is attorney for Global Montello Group, John Aida. I was told that the manager himself, Matthew Pierce, might be joining as well. But if he's not, I can certainly give a summary of what we're proposing.
Okay, if you would, please.
So this is the All Town Fresh at 92 West Main Street. It's just simply a change of manager of record in connection with that alcohol license. Just briefly, by way of experience, Mr. Pierce has been with Global Montello for the past almost 5 years. He does have experience in the alcohol industry. He previously worked at the All Town Fresh in Plymouth, which also holds a wine and malt license. He is familiar with the rules and regulations of the board, the ABCC, and the laws of the Commonwealth as it pertains to sale and service of alcohol. He is tip certified, as well as all of the other staff members handling alcohol at the store is also tip certified. So there's no operational changes, no ownership changes. Everything else is remaining the same. So this is simply a request for the change of manager on the alcohol license.
Thank you. Mr. Manning.
I'm fine with it. I looked at it and looks like everything is in order. So I'm good with it.
Okay.
All of the documentation looked like it was fine and in order, and I don't see any problem with the change of management.
No questions or concerns?
The packet information looked good. I didn't see the permitting team comments. Were there any adverse comments from staff?
We typically don't do permitting team comments for the change of manager.
Okay.
Has there been any violations of the license to date that we know of?
I don't believe so. The attorney can clarify as well.
No, there's actually all across the board there. All the licenses held by Global Montello has no history of violations.
Thank you. Chair will entertain a motion for the change of manager at 92 West Main Street.
I move to approve the change of manager for All Town Fresh to Matthew Pierce.
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Unanimous and so approved. All set, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate your time. Have a good night.
Have a good night. Hiring process update. Why don't we begin with the deputy police chief? Jessica is here. Great. And then we'll tackle the town manager, and Elaine can take a quick break. Jessica, please.
So we are at a point after having had the assessment center to just schedule the interviews with the select board.
Okay. And that is on the deputy police chief, correct?
Correct.
All right. So tackling this one first, Where is the board in terms of their thoughts on next steps? We'll start with Mrs. Ritterbusch.
So I assume, like last time, we'll have an opportunity to review discipline records of any applicants, which we did. We went to the police station, did that last time? Or finalists, I mean, right? Okay.
Yeah.
And then do we know approximately when they would come before the board?
When they would become before the, well, we would have to establish a date that we want to do the interviews and then schedule a date for the review.
Okay. The assessment part is done, correct?
Assessment part is done.
Okay.
We also do have an outside candidate, so clearly we wouldn't have that piece for the outside candidate.
Let's go back and forth on this one. Mr. Manning.
I'll wait for my questions.
Okay. Ms. Lafreniere.
How many applicants do we have or are we expecting?
I was asked to bring 3 to the board, the top 3 to the board.
Did we
There
get
were
more than
4.
3?
There were 4 that went through the assessment center, and it's scored. So there is a top 3 based on the assessment.
So you're bringing 3 before the board.
So that would be 2 internal and 1 external, is that correct? There are 3 all internal, or wouldn't be any other way, I guess?
We haven't disclosed yet.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Setting a date is a difficult thing, I think, going to be.
Yeah. Mr. Clark.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still trying to get like my feet underneath me with all this. You know, we talked about kind of priorities the last couple of months. I think, you know, our next conversation with the town manager, you know, is our immediate priority. And understanding that we haven't released who the candidates are, you know, I don't see a rush to do this. I'd like to know if we could actually slow this down. I know we just made a promotion in the department, what was that, 2 months ago? And I know at the time, we had, I believe, 3 internal candidates. It was a split decision. I'd like to give a little time and see how the department's doing in a couple months, maybe reevaluate, get a better temperature of it. I know that would help me personally. I know the rest of you guys have been more involved in this, but that's just my take right now. Prioritize the town manager and then circle back around.
Chief Bennett, would you be so kind and join us to discuss this for a sec? So we're talking about the deputy chief position, obviously, as you know. Ms. Lafreniere made a comment about scheduling a date for interviews and things could be difficult. Mr. Clark is suggesting that we perhaps slow it down and kind of give it a little time and let us all get our heads around a lot of things that have gone on here in the last, several months, obviously. What are your thoughts on kind of where we are and what we might or might not do?
So, Lieutenant Van Ralton was promoted, as you said, a couple months ago. He's doing a fantastic job. He was doing much of the work already, but now with the actual assignment as lieutenant, he is second in command in the organization. We also have moved forward with the sergeant process to prepare for promotions of the sergeants. There was an exam given, and we have 2 candidates that can move on to the interview process. So as we all know, making promotions is a big part of morale and building morale, and people have worked towards this. However, I do understand Mr. Clark's concern. It'd be nice for me to be able to come back and showcase the lieutenant's accomplishments. So I guess it's, I'm at your will. We can move forward with it. We'll make time, or if you have some reservations or wanted to have some time to take a look, and if you wanted to, I could sit down and we could talk about future structure and what the build-out will look like at full staff. Because there are some pieces that will move in the future.
I'd love to have a more comprehensive plan. That would be very helpful, Chief.
Sure.
So yeah, that would be great.
When you say more comprehensive plan.
Yeah, what do you mean?
elaborate, please.
Well, he just alluded to, you talked about kind of your plans, right? And it kind of seemed like a longer-term view of the department. That, to me, is kind of critical to decision-making, right? And I'd expect you to be doing that. So to know that you have a plan, you know, whether it's the next 6, 12, 18 months, I'd love to hear kind of what your view of the department looks like. That's how I interpreted what you just said.
In terms of how we staff it and so forth?
Yeah, I mean, because we look for the chief's recommendation on a lot of these things, right? He's in the department, he leads the department, so if he's got a plan, that would be helpful to hear it, and how that plays into promotions, internal, how we view things externally, of course, right? So that would be very helpful.
The chief has come and presented that to us and had slides, and we've gone over it in detail within the last year, but you were not here. So we could do that again, so new people could get up to speed, I guess.
Yeah, if I need to get up to speed personally, like, that's fine. I just know, you know, you had both the lieutenant and the deputy position open for a while, right?
Yes.
So you say the plan has been presented for over a year, not a lot of movement. Like, I'd love to know things like what went behind the decision for the lieutenant position to be filled prior to the deputy chief one. You know, those are types of things that I'm trying to just wrap my head around, Chief.
I'd be more than happy to meet with you.
Okay.
At the earliest convenience.
Perfect.
Through the chair, I appreciate all the comments and questions, but I think it's easy to catch up and help you ramp up with the context and what the chief has proposed, how the hiring process is going. But I didn't understand, you know, why we would need to slow down. This is an important position and has been out there for a while, and we have been following due process, and the hiring process seems to be maturing enough to get to the final stage. Do you have any particular concern about that, or?
It's not as much a concern, right? It's because I agree with you. Like, I don't want to just come in and hit the brakes on things. If it's possible to speed things up, that's always a good idea. But you just alluded to it, how important of a process this is. It's been open for over a year, right? So, like, I know it's on me for just catching up now recently, and I'll do that as quickly as possible. But if we've waited over a year, is a couple more months or weeks, whatever that delay is, you know, that's kind of my thought process.
And the wait would be for you to catch up, or what would be the kind of threshold that, okay, we have waited enough and now we can move again?
I mean, I'm open to suggestions. I know that I can sit down with the chief, like he alluded to, and I can get caught up pretty quickly. So I'm not saying, like, you know, completely hit the brakes on this, but just a little bit of time, as opposed to setting a date tonight for interviews.
Okay.
Is that fair? And I'm looking for feedback, too, from the rest of you. You guys are more in this than I am.
Okay.
Ms. LaFreniere.
This is a really difficult issue, and we have been working on it for quite a long time. And we have taken an awful lot of criticism from the public for not having filled it earlier and now. And because of procedure and nailing down procedure and getting everything right, and then going out and getting a company to help us, it has taken a lot longer than even we thought it would. And it's just that we have come to a point where it's time.
No, and Mary Jo, I completely appreciate that. You know, the public can put all the blames for future delays on me. It's just like you said, this is an important decision, and I don't want to just jump into it, not be educated on everything that's gone on. So again, I will get up to speed as quickly as possible, but I'm just trying to be diligent about this. I'm not saying you guys did anything wrong in the process, just checking my bases.
Chief, you mentioned that the lieutenant currently is second in command. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And that's going well?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And how long, he's been in the role, how long in that particular second in command position?
You asked me the date. I don't know. A couple months? Couple months?
Couple months. I'm in sales. Rounds every.
Yeah, I know.
I'm going to say he was effectively second in command even before that. He was effectively second in command even before that because we didn't have a lieutenant either. So he's actually been, when the chief has gone on vacation, he's had to take over even before he was lieutenant.
When we hire or promote, fair enough. When we hire or promote, do we have a timeline, like that we look at the individuals and see how they're doing in whatever role they're filling, whether it be a town manager or a deputy chief or the chief or whomever? Is there a timeline? That's, you know, in my business, we call it the probationary period, not a negative term, but just like we're just going to check it all out. You check us out, we check you out. Like, is that a thing with this position in Hopkinton?
It's not a stipulation.
Sorry?
It's not a stipulation for prior to the
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
promotion, in the promotion process that's laid out in the policy. It's not a stipulation for length of time to be in that role as like lieutenant.
So my understanding is that the employee handbook wouldn't preclude the deputy from being promoted from lieutenant because of some length of time. There is a period of time evaluation, the 6-month mark, for where you kind of connect with them to talk to them.
You do. We don't have, at the town of Hopkinton, we don't have a policy where somebody has to be in a position for a certain length of time to be considered for promotion.
So somebody could go into a role and then go into another role within a couple of months, whatever. But you're saying, Chief, what's the 6-month piece?
There's some, go ahead. Isn't there, there's some component about for new employees
It is
because
the
they don't get a
introductory-
performance review?
It is the introductory period, yes, to see if they're successful in that role.
It's an odd one for me to get my head around, having done this for 40 years in the private world. You take a job and they look at you and say, okay, young whippersnapper over there, you're in that job for a couple of years. Don't go looking for your next job 6 months from now inside the company because we need you to do what we've asked you to do for a while and get up to speed and get everyone else up to speed around you and so on. So to be kind of moving quickly like this, I don't know if I share the same kind of quickness in terms of what you're thinking about, but in my mind, there's been so much going on in the department for the last year. When we say we want to slow it down, and while we might get some resident feedback, I call it, right, or citizen feedback, in some ways, I think the citizens want us to slow it down, get it right, and make sure that we get it right this time and not sort of feel rushed or compelled because of all the other things that have gone on. Is there pressure on us now to make this decision because of everything else? Well, that's not the right reason to fill this position, in my opinion. Like, I think what's gone on has gone on, but we have to be able to divorce the two and not feel that pressure to make the right and best long-term decision for the town going forward. The deputy chief role, basically lines somebody up to be the chief someday.
That's my job.
And are we pushing our foot on the gas here and setting something up that we're still not comfortable with? And I don't think the town is comfortable right now making a big decision around our police department until we sort of let the dust settle a little bit and maybe have some time to think it through further. That's where my gut is coming from on this, as I think about the general will and what I hear out in the street and so forth.
Through the chair, I hear you, and I certainly agree that this is a critical one. It's the second in command who will, one day become potentially the chief or has the potential to become the chief. But two things I'm not clear as I hear, because when we started the process, we actually heard also from the residents and everyone that we need this position, it's a critical position, and we need to hire it. And I don't think there was any, gas pedaling in terms of speeding it up, or it's been a year. It was more about the process. And if you look at or hear back the chief's plan at the time, it was more, he was going from building up the ranks and then moving up to the top position hiring, because there was for some time a bit of a gap between the ranks. So wanted to make sure the foundation is laid out and then move up to the top position. That's how it kind of worked out. So hiring the sergeants, hiring the lieutenant, and then now for the deputy chief. So from that perspective, it wasn't actually gas pedaling, it was part plan as the chief laid it out. But what I would suggest, since you both feel like that you may be needing some more time to understand and kind of process the things and also have heard some things, how about we set out a time that you feel that is sufficient for you to catch up or, to evaluate enough. And if, there's always an open window when we all can come back and say, okay, maybe we don't have enough good candidates, or we don't have enough justification to do it right now. Because all these kind of geared towards, we have the justification, we have the process, we're looking for the candidates, and let's go and do it. But I don't think it was more like expedited or gas pedal. And we also heard from many residents actually who wanted more second in command or succession plan for the police. And we also directed the police chief and as well as the fire chief that for too long we didn't have a complete succession plan and succession people. So let's do that, otherwise we see kind of risks and holes in the very important organizations. So my 2 cents, I think if we want to push it, that's fine, but let's not do that kind of indefinitely. If you feel certain time that is comfortable, 3 weeks, 6 weeks, I think we can talk about that and kind of process it that way, my 2 cents.
Would it be possible to get more clarification around that 6-month thing that you mentioned and get us, you said it was in the employee handbook or something? We see that actual content?
It is published online, and we can provide it.
Maybe we could look at that and discuss that at the next meeting or the one after that, depending on when we can schedule. July, by the way, July 2nd, that meeting is canceled and moved to July 9th. So maybe the 9th or the one thereafter, and kick that around. But I'd be curious to see what that is, because that might play into some of the discussion I think we're having tonight. I just want to make sure we don't do something there as well that's a little bit off what we should be considering, right? So if everybody's okay with tabling it for now, for a little bit, and we'll look at that information and then come back to it.
I have a little more to add, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to do caution us all on the morale issues. Like, we had a lot of exits from the department in 2021, and it's taken us some time to kind of build up our hiring, which we've done. But now we have a lot of brand-new people who are new to being police officers, and we need to get our sergeants up so that we have, the command structure like the chief has proposed. So I certainly understand we're very busy in July. We're going to be hiring a town manager. So if we need to put it off till the beginning of fall or something, I think I'm comfortable with that. But I don't think we should wait too long. We don't want to have people trying to get a lieutenant spot in a different, or a deputy chief in a different town because we're not doing our promotions here. When we have a lot of hiring done, so we can start doing our promotions.
I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm sorry. We can't do that right now. Hang on 1 sec, please. Thank you.
That's all I had.
Okay? You all
No,
set?
I think that's a fair point.
Okay. All right, so I think we have general consensus that we would just go ahead and table it for a little bit. We'll come back to it. I hear your point about the morale. I think the best thing for the morale within the police department is for them to understand that the select board is behind them 110% in everything they do. They did a great job today with a situation in downtown Hopkinton and got something under control that could have been very scary. So kudos to them for a job well done. Let them know that we have their backs and we'll support everything they're doing.
Thank you.
All right, with that, let's move to the next item in the please.
Does the chief want to stay up for this one?
The next item on the agenda,
Yeah, oh, definitely.
We just had a question.
Yeah. I must have read the agenda wrong. I thought
so
there
we
was-
have the annual appointments, boards, committees, commissions, and
Sorry, I missed it.
officials.
Are we doing the town manager update, though?
Oh, I'm sorry, we got to do the,
Wait,
you've got your foot on the gas.
Because
Okay, hang on.
left, so we can.
What would you like?
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Chief, we're all set for right now.
Okay.
Okay, we are on to the town manager update.
But we do need the chief for the 2 items down the
We do.
Yeah.
He knows that. Mr. Petron, if you would please join us. Okay, so we've moved on to the town manager. This is a great opportunity to update everybody on what's going on and next steps in this process, which is another very important hire for the community. Jessica, please.
So we are very excited about Thursday night at the library from 6 to 8. We're doing the meet and greet with the public. We're hoping to have a really good turnout. We have posted it on our website. We've put it on the calendar. We have alerted the news. And we are very excited for the public to be able to meet the candidates and give feedback. I'm planning to have a survey available for folks at the library. There'll be a QR code on flyers that will be distributed, as well as some paper in case people would prefer to fill out a paper survey. and then also online, because the way I understand it, it's going to be live streamed as well. So we're looking forward to that. And then that feedback will be available to the select board. So then once you do your interviews, you'll have the feedback from the public, you'll have your interviews, and then you'll also have the packet that was already distributed to you with the references.
Clarifying question. When you say meet and greet, do people can drop in, or they need to come for the whole thing in order to meet all 4 candidates?
They can come during any time between 6 and 8 and ask questions of the different candidates.
A meet and greet recently that I didn't arrive exactly on time and I missed part of it, so I just wanted to make sure I knew.
No, it'll be more organic than that, and people can circulate, be in 4 different locations, and yeah.
Sounds good, thank you.
Okay, so Thursday, 6 to 8 p.m. at the Hopkinton Public Library. The 4 candidates will be in 4 different places in the building, so the residents can come in and circulate as they see fit whenever they can get there. And ideally, if they could fill out one of those forms, it's a agree, disagree, somewhat agree, those typical kind of HR forms.
Absolutely.
That would be excellent and certainly help get the feedback to the board. Anything else? Mr. Petrie?
No, you have your 4 candidates, which are being announced this evening, that are moving forward. So if the board wishes to, release the candidates at this point, I don't believe they've been released to date, right? So,
Not yet, no.
So we have the 4 candidates that will be available for Thursday night.
Okay, Mr. Manning, you've been sitting and doing a ton of work on this subcommittee. Are you ready to announce the candidates, you think?
I don't have the names with me.
Right, but just forget the names. Are you good with the announcement of the names?
I am, yeah. I think the committee and John has done a wonderful job. We all interviewed them and we feel comfortable moving them to the next round.
Okay, great. Thank you. Anything else you want to share before we?
No, I think I'm excited. I think we have some really good candidates. But it's a very important position, so I think the meet and greet is going to help them to know us and the residents to interact and get some feel for it. So I would encourage anyone who's interested, and actually everyone, to come join the meet and greet. But I'm excited. I'm hoping we can move forward and find our right candidate. But thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Probably a dumb question, but I'm going to ask it anyway, just to make sure. Are all 4 candidates aware that their names are going to be made public this evening? Are all 4 in agreement that can happen?
They're in place. We're all set.
Yes. The answer is yes, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Just want to make sure. No confusion. Mrs. Ridbush, anything?
Nope.
Joe?
Nothing.
Mary Jo?
Nope. I'm
So, Mr.
excited.
Petrin, if you would be so kind and please give us the names of the candidates.
Yes, the first is in alphabetical order, Lance Del Priori. The second is Jason Hoke. The third is Elaine Lazarus. And the fourth is Christopher Senior. So those are the 4 names. They were chosen by the committee of 6. And again, I want to thank the screening committee. They did an excellent job in working through the process, very professional, and it was a great committee to work with through that. But those are the 4 candidates they've selected to present to the select board.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
I missed 2.
Yeah, they'll get all
Yeah, I'll get
I'll
them.
get all that back to you. And you'll see it in the email as well. So we'll get an email then with those names. Please, Jessica, just correct spelling all that, unless we've already got that.
We got it on,
Get that in the
you got it
packet?
on Thursday.
It's in the packet.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Okay, great. Is there anything else we need to discuss this evening?
So we'll need to discuss, maybe we can begin the discussion Thursday night, you and I, as to the process for July 9th. So the interviews are on July 9th. Timing, as to what is the board, when are the board going to interview the candidates? And then we can talk about questions, going forward as well. So you have a couple of choices. We'll assist you with questions. We'll give you some suggested questions, but you'll get a chance, opportunity to review and see if there's questions you want. This is your interview. So we'll just begin and provide, some background for you. We'll work with you on that. And then the process process is that you can ask the questions, you can have me ask the questions, through the interview process. It goes either way. Some boards prefer to ask, have us, just conduct the interview with the board members, certainly being able to, follow up with questions at any point, going through, or you can separate the questions amongst the board and ask them. So that's, those are some of the options we can discuss.
We can probably figure out those logistics the next go-around.
Exactly.
All right, everybody good?
Good.
All set? All set?
And you released the names to the public too, right? We got them last week, but with their bios and everything, right?
To the public? This right here was the public finding out who the candidates were.
Oh, I know, but we received like a paragraph about each one. I think the public that would be helpful for the public too.
Sure.
Right?
That's your decision as to how you,
Yeah.
that's a public document you have, so.
Okay. Do you guys think that would be helpful for the public? To have a couple sentences about each candidate?
I would want to make sure that the candidates know that we're going to put something up there about their bio, other than their name at this point.
Okay.
I'll say it 100 times in the next 3 years. I work in the private sector. We don't do any of this in public. None of this. So this is all really weird to me, even though I've done this for 20 years. I'm hypersensitive to HR information anywhere but in a file on somebody's desk that's locked.
And
that's how I look at it.
our goal is to make sure the town stays within the legal aspects of moving forward.
It's perfect. It's very benign and, pretty straightforward. I think that would be fine, but,
That would be great. Because I think the thing is people, once they know the names, will start Googling, and if someone has a common name, they might actually find the wrong person. So it's better that they know who it is.
Okay.
Okay.
We good?
The only thing I wanted to point out is just so the public is aware. Thursday is actually supposed to be the hottest day of the week. And so the library does have a policy where if a room gets too hot, they close the room. They don't close the library, but they close the room. So we do have a backup plan to move around if we need to. But
I won't get into whether there's central air over there or not, but okay, thank you. All right, great. All set?
Okay,
Thank you very much.
And I'll be here Thursday night to assist with the process.
Great, thank you, John. And Jessica, you going to be there Thursday as well?
HR will be there. It won't be me, but yes.
Can you make sure Elaine joins us again?
I will, absolutely.
All right, great. So that covers item 5. Item 6 is annual appointments, boards, committees, commissions, and officials. The Select Board will consider annual appointments to various town boards, committees, commissions, and the appointment of certain town officials. This is not the only evening that we will have appointments to make this year. It's a process that I think has gone over a couple of meetings because you could take a whole meeting just doing this stuff. So, Mrs. Lazarus, could you walk us through item 6 real quick, just from your perspective, what we're going to do here in the next few minutes?
Sure. In this case, many of the applicants are the sole applicant for vacancies on boards and committees, or they're uncontested seats. So in the document that you've received with motions, we've grouped them by uncontested seats and then a couple of contested seats. So starting in the spring, people who are members of boards and committees automatically get emails letting them know that their terms are expiring and that they need to reapply. So that process has been going on for a couple of months. We also issue vacancy notices. We've done that twice in the last couple of months, and so we've received a lot of applications. So now we're starting to bring those forward to the board in a couple of groups. And so tonight is the first group that you'll be seeing.
Okay, great. Go ahead. If you want to let's start with a motion, and then we'll go from there. That'd be great. Let's do.
I move to appoint the following individuals to the boards and committees listed and the term identified. Excuse me. James Burton, a full member of the Board of Appeals, term expires 6/30/2029. Alfred Rogers, an at-large member of the Community Preservation Committee, term expires 6/30/2027. Matthew Moyen, Jeannie LeBlanc and Jeff Barnes are Conservation Commission terms to expire at 6/30/2027. Karen Kong to the Cultural Council, term to expire 6/30/2027. Patrick Fagan and Hopkinton Historic District Commission, term to expire 6/30/2027. Steve Lewandowski as a large member of the Open Space Preservation Commission, term expired 6/30/2029. David Godfrey to the Permanent Building Committee, term expired 6/30/2027. Ira Steckler, Karen Kong, and Linda Truss to the Sustainable Green Committee, terms expire 6/30/2027. Craig Nation to the Woodville Historic District Commission, term expires 6/30/2027. And Mike Whalen as Veterans Grave Officer, term expires 3/30/29.
I'm happy to second, but I do have some questions.
I'm sorry?
I'm happy to second that, but I have a couple questions.
Okay, we have a second. Discussion, Mrs. Ritterbusch.
Okay, so I thought Steve Lewandowski had also applied for CPC, but was that through Open Space? He would be the...
Right, so because he's the open space representative, he doesn't need to be appointed.
Doesn't need to be, okay, great. That explains that. And then the Sustainable Green Committee had sent us a letter asking us to maybe hold off on these appointments. I don't know if you'd had any correspondence with him.
I think that, I don't have the email in front of me, but Jeff had asked that the applicants understand the time commitment. And then I think,
One of them didn't express interest in the Green Committee in their application, even though they had checked the box, I think. So I wondered if we might remove that for discussion, but approve the others.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table in a second, though, that would include that.
I would suggest an amendment to vote 8 separately.
So you want to separate that one, is that okay, from your motion? So we're back, which one is that again?
Number 8.
Number 8, so we're going to separate number 8 for the moment. Okay? And now, in the second, you're good with your second separating it, right? So everybody's good with the motion on the table?
Yep.
No.
Any further comments on the motion on the table? Set? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous and so carries, except for item number 8. Mrs. Ritterbusch.
So I didn't know if they might, I don't know, Jeff had asked us to hold off and make sure they understood the time commitment. I don't know if any of them are here tonight? Okay.
Hi, Linda Chuss, 11 School Street. I'm up for reappointment for the Sustainable Green Committee. Last fall, we started updating our charter based a little bit on what we had seen Historical District Commission do. We have we're not the only committee that faces this, but we wanted to start addressing it. We have a lot of turnover on the committees because people join, not really understanding what we do, never having been to a meeting, and not understanding the time commitment. And then we run into quorum issues where they can't show up, and then we have to go through the whole appointment process again. So we updated our charter to reflect criteria, like how much time we expect people to spend, make sure people know when the meeting is, make sure they attend at least one meeting and review what we do before they actually come here for appointment. We approved those changes, but then we wanted to make a few more tweaks to the charter and get it to you before we had appointments come up, and the timing of that didn't work out. So at our last meeting a couple weeks ago, we decided to ask if you guys could wait on, not my reappointment specifically, but on any new appointments until we can bring those updated charter changes to you, see if you'll approve them, and if you do, then have those people come back for application, assuming they meet those guidelines and want to still continue. So does that make sense, what I just said? Do you have any questions?
I personally would be comfortable, I don't know about the rest of the board, waiting until they do their charter changes to do the appointments, because anybody still on the committee can continue to serve, correct?
They can continue.
Right, even though they've expired, they could continue for now.
Okay, so Linda, if I hear you correctly, you would like your reappointment to take place this evening, but you want to hold on Ira and Karen, is that fair?
If that's okay, because I obviously, well, I meet the criteria because I've been to the meetings, I know how much time is involved, so for that reason, the proposed criteria, I should say.
Yeah. Linda, thank you. And what you said makes sense. I think I'm okay with that. But just to understand, the other two applicants, have you talked to them, or are they aware, or would they be surprised?
I don't know if they're aware. We only found out about them on Friday, so they're not people who have been to our meetings ever. They're not people who, we don't know that they know when we meet, what we do, or are familiar. And as Elaine mentioned, one of them, their application expressed interest in Trails Committees, but the box said Sustainable Green Committee. So that was Ira. That seemed almost like a mistake, like maybe he checked the wrong box, or we're not sure. But so, no, those two candidates are not people who we're aware of at this point.
I see. And you are proposing to hold off until the charter is done. I'm okay with that. Yeah.
Mrs. Lazarus, any thoughts on holding off with Ira and Karen and just going forward with Linda this evening?
It would be nice to find out if they're either present here or on Zoom.
No one with those names is on Zoom. If they're logged in with a different name, they could raise their hand. And no one's here in the room? No.
Mr. Clark, any thoughts?
No, nothing.
It would seem to me, given the charter work that you folks are doing and the ideas of having folks attend and get a good feel for it before appointment, I mean, it makes sense. And I guess if we didn't have a chance to speak with these folks, there's a little bit of a disadvantage there, but I get it. So the chair will entertain a motion to approve Linda Chus to the Sustainable Green Committee this evening for a term to expire 6/30/27.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for Linda only at this evening, and we can come back to the others after. I think if you folks continue reaching out to them to make sure and if they do all that, it's all good, then bring them on back and we'll do it.
Right, but I think we want to come to you first to have our updated charter reviewed to make sure what we're asking for makes sense.
Got it. Makes sense, too. Totally. All right, with that, we have a motion and a second on the table. Any further discussion? You okay? You
Just my allergies are raging
good
today.
to vote? You good on the motion to appoint Linda?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm fine.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so Linda will be reappointed to the Sustainable Green Committee, and the others will table to a future date. Okay.
I'm going to step out of the room while you do Commission on Disability.
All right, so we have the Commission on Disability now. Elaine, we have a new person in Deborah Mahaley, and we have two additional people seeking reappointment, Amy Ritterbusch and Praveen Harahan. How would the board like to proceed?
I'd like to nominate our reappointments, Amy Ritterbusch and Praveen Harahan. I think they have done a good job, and I think that they will continue to.
I would echo that. I think it's a new committee, and they've been involved from the
They have the
beginning, so
experience now.
it's really going to be helpful to have them continue.
And I do want to encourage
But I-
Deborah to please come forward for any position. Just happens that we have two candidates that we know
It's
are
always
good for
tough
this
when we have-
position right now.
Mr. Clark, any thoughts before we do a motion?
Is Deborah here? Or on Zoom?
We lost our Zoom contact.
Yeah.
Most can hear.
Is anyone on Zoom?
Yeah.
By chance?
Anyone watching Zoom? Amy used to do that. Let me check.
Hearing none. Mr. Clark, anything else?
Yeah, no, nothing to add. Obviously, if they were here, I'd love to hear from them, but no issues otherwise.
Chair will entertain a motion.
I move the motion to appoint Amy Ritterbusch and Praveen Harihan to the Commission of Disability to a term expiring 6/30/2027.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous, so carries with those on the board. Ms. Ritterbusch had stepped off. Please have the minutes reflect that. Okay, all set on that one. Next up, Historical Commission. There are 2 vacancies, 1 3-year term, 1 1-year term, and 3 applicants. 2 new people are Patrick Fagan and James Burton. And a person seeking reappointment is Michael Rolfan.
James Burton is on Zoom.
I'm sorry?
James Burton is on Zoom.
James Burton is on Zoom, thank you. So for this particular one, I just want to look at one other thing here. What is the one that, there was a Historical Commission and a Historic District.
Okay, so Patrick Fagan is also on the Historic District Commission.
Yeah, so that was the one thing that caught my eye in the packet. How does that typically work?
They have different charters, so I think, if memory serves, people have often been on both. They don't really conflict, I don't think. Let's see.
Can he vote on most things, though, if he's on the district and the commission? I mean, I would think there's some duality there.
So the district has authority over only the 25 properties in the district, whereas the Historical Commission is for the whole town, and they approve demolition permits. So they have different functions. So I guess if something was going to be demolished that was in the Historic District, it would go to the Historic District Commission, not the Historical Commission. But anywhere else in the town, it would go to the Historical Commission. Does that make sense?
It does, but I think it creates an opportunity for us to spread the wealth a little bit, with other folks that want to get involved. But I also thought that I saw James Burton we just
Board of Appeals.
pointed him to the Board of Appeals, which is a job, right? That is a lift at times.
Is that who you mentioned was on Zoom?
Yes.
Is anyone else on Zoom for this particular appointment that we can tell?
I don't think so.
Board okay if we go to Mr. Burton and ask his interest?
Yeah, sure.
James, are you out there?
Yes, sir.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight. If you wouldn't mind sharing your interest with the Historical Commission and how that might fit or not fit with the Zoning Board of Appeals, which we just appointed you to, et cetera.
The Zoning Board of Appeals, I've got that locked down pretty well. I've been doing it for a while. We meet every other week. It's not too intensive, as long as you read all the materials and you go do site visits. As for the historical thing, I have a history degree. I'm in real estate. I'm good with architecture. I want to be more involved in the historic properties around town. I thought it was a good way to be involved.
So
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Burton?
actually, I believe, and I'll clarify with Elaine, I believe we have an opening for a Realtor on the Historic District Commission, the other one. Is that right?
I believe that was filled by someone else.
Oh, Danielle. Yeah, okay, never mind. Sorry. We did for a long time, so never mind. I was thinking that could be a better fit, but.
I do offer that the 2 boards meet on different nights, so there isn't a conflict there.
Do we have any other candidates to speak?
And I mean, I would recommend a reappointment for Mike Ruan, because he has been on there a long time and really does a good job keeping everything in order. But Patrick does a great job on the Historic District Commission, which is not a very active committee. So, I mean, I think either Patrick or James would be good for the other choice.
We don't believe there's anyone else on the board. Okay, so what is the board's pleasure here? Mrs. Ritterbusch, we'll start at your end.
Well, I would like to nominate Mike Ruan for one of the spots, and I'm really on the fence for the other. I guess I would go with Patrick for the Historical Commission.
I agree with Mike Rowan.
Microphone, please.
Apologies. I would nominate Mike Rowan for reappointment, and I would look to kind of change things up with James for showing up tonight and talking to us, different perspective.
Ms. Lafreniere?
Well, he just did, wasn't that just a motion?
No, we're just kind
Oh,
of going
okay,
down
thought he made a
the
motion.
path of the nomination concept.
Well, I don't know James Burton or Patrick Fagan, so it makes it a little difficult if they're not here. Michael Rowan,
James
is here.
James just spoke.
We just chatted with James
Yeah.
on Zoom.
I gave him
yes,
showing up.
I did see that, yeah, sorry. I think I would go with Michael Rowan for the 3-year term because he has experience. The 1-year term, this is James Burton. Okay. So then I would go with James Burton for the 1-year term.
Okay, Mr. Manning?
Yeah, first of all, I mean, kudos to all three for stepping forward, and it's a tough decision when we have three wonderful candidates for two. I think I agree, Michael Rogan for 3-year term, and his experience and contribution has been tremendous. And I appreciate that James is here, so I'm leaning towards James. And with James, I think both are great candidates, but James being here and his interest and his background fits well. So I would go for that too.
Okay, so the chair will entertain a motion to appoint Michael Rowan to the 3-year term expiring 6/30/27, and James Burton to the 1-year term expiring 6/30/2025.
So moved.
So moved.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Thank you to all that submitted their names. Please continue to stay involved. Obviously, Patrick is in other areas of town government, which is great. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, it's unanimous and so carries. So that's how we're going to handle the Historical Commission going forward for this round. Next up, Youth Commission. There are 3 full member vacancies, a high school rep vacancy, and 1 middle school rep vacancy, and 6 applicants. So my math says we have 1 too many in terms of the applicants, and we have 1 individual, Joshua Jones, seeking reappointment, who has served for some time on behalf of the community.
I believe some of them are in the room and some are on Zoom.
I'm sorry?
Some of them are on Zoom and some are in the room, I believe.
Okay. If your name was just called, if you wouldn't mind coming forward, please. Deborah Mahaley, Arjun Plori, Mauricio Chatterjee, Karen Mulick, and Iris Steckler. And my apologies if I didn't get it right. And Joshua Jones. Okay, so let's do, are there any on Zoom that we're aware of?
Yep. Arjun Polari is on Zoom.
I'm sorry?
I'm on. I'm on Zoom.
He's on.
Arjun is on Zoom?
Yep.
Okay. So your name, please?
Joshua Jones.
Hello, Joshua. Nice to see you. Thank you. And your name, please?
Aricho Chatterjee.
Aricho, okay. Got it. So by my records here, we have Aricho, Joshua, and Arjun with us this evening.
Correct.
Everybody agree with that? Okay. Based on that, Mrs. Lafreniere.
Well, we got a very nice letter from the people at the Youth Commission that Joshua Jones has been on it for a year, and they would love to have him back, that he has done an excellent job, and that they're very impressed with him. And I read the letter, so I think it would be a very easy thing to reappoint Joshua Jones, first of all, for the 1-year school vacancy, school rep vacancy.
Actually, I think
Anybody else,
Don recommended that we appoint him for the full vacancy because there's other high school students that have applied.
I'm sorry?
Don Alcott recommended that we appoint Joshua as the full member because we have other high school applicants that could take the high school rep spot.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Any other thoughts, Mrs. Ritterbusch?
I guess since we do specifically have spots for middle and high school, are any of the applicants middle schoolers? Do we know? Because then that would be easy to fill. Don, do you know? No.
We're not sure. The applications are blind as to age, probably, right? For good reason. Makes it a little tough in this one, though.
Can we ask?
Mr. Clark, anything?
The applicants that are here, are you high school students? Is that right?
Yes.
Nice. And on Zoom?
I'm a high schooler.
So you're both high school students. Okay. Okay.
Mr. Clark?
I'd like to hear just from each of them that showed up, whether in person or on Zoom, just kind of their interest in just a quick minute while we have them.
Joshua is well prepared. Looks like he can read that in about 60 seconds, Joshua. Please go ahead. No pressure.
I have served on the commission for 3 years, originally as a middle school representative and then now as chair. I really think that the primary function of the commission is to create youth spaces for youth in the town. And my plan for the future is over the summer, I hope to get our volunteer website that we're building operational. I hope to get close with Youth and Family Services. And I also hope to meet at the end of the summer with the commission so that we can like formulate a plan for the future and maybe rework our charter a little bit. Just to be a little bit better oriented for the community. Yeah.
Great, thank you very much for that. Yes, sir.
So with the Youth Commission, I would be empowered to really combat different issues that we have in our youth community, especially in bias and mental health, because these are really issues that are ignored by our youth. With the Youth Commission, I would be able to partner with different programs so we can really inform people on how we can help mental health and bias in our communities towards different people and really provide awareness to these issues.
Great, thank you very much. Arjun, on Zoom.
I have a deep passion about the mental health. I think after COVID, the mental health of a lot of this people has gone down. I really want to help fix that by just helping out the community.
Great.
I also want.
Go ahead. Yep.
I would like to research throughout the summer about this and help get better mental health throughout the town.
Great, thank you very much. All three make very good cases for their candidacy. Any other thoughts from the board? Questions?
I'd like to know what terms are you seeking? Are you seeking are you in high school?
Yes.
So you're seeking the one-year high school rep position or a regular 3-year position on the board?
A regular 3-year position.
That's why his name was up there.
So Arjun 3, Josh was going to do 3, we want a regular position.
Already true, actually, right?
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Arjun, are you interested in 3 or 2?
Do you have any preference?
Yeah, per year as well.
Okay.
So
I think it makes sense to
So those 3 are full members.
I do think it makes sense to appoint the 3 that are here for the full member seats.
Okay.
But it'll be hard to choose which of the other 2.
Through the chair, I was just wondering, Deborah Mihaly, she was a candidate earlier, right? For Commission on Disability.
Yes, and she didn't get it.
I was wondering to have her giving an opportunity here and also having one of the high school candidates for the high school rep and the other 2 as full member. That way we can accommodate them.
So it's weird, like we're appointing people based on age.
I know.
Like, that's
Yeah, no.
odd.
Yeah, it is.
In today's HR world.
Well, I kind of like Amy's point. I mean, I would recommend the 3 to full members based off their attendance.
Okay. So why don't we do this, because this is just a sticky one for lots of different reasons. Let's start at that end and see if we can't build this nomination concept from left to right.
Sure. Through the chair, I didn't understand, where are we considering the age? Oh, you mean?
Well, when you're picking a high school student to fill the high school seat versus a high school student to fill a regular seat, because we have another person that might not be a high school student that will go to the regular seat. So the age is coming into play. That's what I get nervous about.
I see. But that's by design, right? I don't think anyone who is not in the high school can join the high school rep. Is that correct?
Yeah, but that's only a 1-year seat. So,
It's a non-voting
So
seat.
the high school rep position is for a high school student.
And do we have any other high school student here to fill in that?
I don't think,
know based on the applications.
Yeah.
We can't tell in the application.
well, I know
But there's
Karen is
no
an
age
adult. I
limit
don't know
for
the
the-
other two.
Yeah. But a high school student can be a full member also.
Is there any one of the high school students that would be willing to be the high school rep? Let's start with that.
They all want to be on the full committee.
Okay, fair enough. No. That's fine, that's fine.
Yeah, I agree. I would go with the preferences of the people who has taken the time and come here and given wonderful speech and shown the commitment. So kudos to you all. Thank you. And then also Deborah Mihaly. Those are my preferences.
So that leaves one more, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, one more.
We have 3 students to go, full members. We have Deborah, and then we would have one more. There's 5 seats. There's 3 full members, a high school rep, and a middle school rep. But
We don't think
if we
they're
don't have
eligible.
those types of
Yeah.
folks, then we
Hold on.
can't go there.
We can wait on those.
Yeah, so is there?
Let's leave those alone for right now. How about that?
Why don't we appoint 3 and we'll let them.
Okay. So the chair will entertain a motion, tell me if I get this right, to appoint Arjun Oricho, I'm sorry for the name, and Joshua to the youth commission for the 3 full-time member vacancies.
So moved.
Oh, and there's 2 different term lengths. It looks like 2 will expire in 2027 and 1 in 2026. If any of you are graduating next year, it might make sense for you to take the shorter term.
I'm graduating in 2026, so it might make sense.
Would you mind taking the
Yeah, I'll take
2026?
Joshua to 2026. So you move that with Joshua in 2026 term?
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. So we'll table the other appointments to a future meeting, and we'll go with the 3 folks that just got elected. Congratulations, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on now to confirmed town manager appointments. Mrs. Lazarus.
So these are the plumbing and gas inspector, Charles DeBritz, the assistant plumbing and gas inspector, Peter Zareski, and Dan Hunt, the wiring inspector, Kevin Borate, and also for the person to cut wire in case of fire, assistant wiring inspector, Jonathan Shepard, sealer of weights and measures, Louis Sakin, and public weighers, John Palmer, Jane Adams, Jamie Wright, Colleen Roy, and Thomas J. McIntyre. And those are 1-year terms.
Madam Vice Chair, I need you to run this appointment, please. I'm going to step off the board.
I move.
I'm in the, wait.
Okay.
Wait. I'm in the electrical business, and I don't want to be in the middle of
Okay. Anybody want to read the motion? Or you want me? I'll do it, okay. I move to appoint the following town officials to a 1-year term per the recommendation of the interim town manager. Plumbing and gas inspector Charles DeBritz. Assistant plumbing and gas inspector Peter Zersky, assistant plumbing and gas inspector Dan Hunt, wiring inspector Kevin Beret, person to cut wire in case of fire Kevin Beret, assistant writing inspector Jonathan Shepard, sealer of weights and measures Louis Sakin, public weigher John Palmer, public weigher Jane Adams, public weigher Jamie Wright, public weigher Colleen Roy, and public weigher Thomas J. McIntyre.
Second.
So moved.
Second. You gotta say all in favor?
Any discussion?
We got a second, okay. Second? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Okay, the Keep Safe program, Middlesex Sheriff's Department. I do think the chief is here. Would you like to take a few minutes and explain this to us? Is anybody here from the Middlesex Sheriff's Department?
They are not.
They are not.
Through the chair, I did speak with the undersheriff and a couple other representatives before coming before you, and The sheriff extends his support for our community. This is a program that's in place in 50 police departments within Middlesex County as well as the state police. The sheriff's very supportive in many initiatives in the community, in the communities that his agency serves. So I want to thank him for this opportunity. So what the Safe Keep program does is it will allow us to take a person who's under arrest we wouldn't do it every night, like with every arrest. It would just be if someone was going to be in a cell for an extended period of time, maybe a long weekend. If you've seen our cells, they're steel shells with concrete beds. It's a long time to spend 4 days 3 or 4 days in there. If there was an arrest on a Sunday night and we could bring him to court, we wouldn't do that. And we'd evaluate the sad day type of thing, and we'd talk with the prisoner. And this would be a decision made at the sergeant level based on guidelines. Not every prisoner can be transported, only men only. And they'd be brought to Billerica where they'd be taken in, and then when the court opened, they would be brought to the court having the jurisdiction. So if we arrested them, they'd be brought to Middlesex District, to Framingham District. However, if we arrested on a warrant out of Brockton District, they would bring them to Brockton, wherever in the Commonwealth the warrant may be from.
Okay, thank you, Chief, for that background. Mrs. Ritterbusch, questions?
No, I think that makes sense, and I appreciate getting the information about the program.
Mr. Clark.
No questions. We just wanted to hear your endorsement of it, so thank you.
Mr. Manning?
No questions. I think clarified well. So I'm in favor of it.
Okay, just simplify this. Someone who's arrested would stay overnight.
Yes,
Or maybe
if we made an arrest tonight,
So
we would.
this is for a long term, like more than 3 days,
Well,
or another problem.
So the longest event that could occur would be an arrest on Friday through a Monday holiday. So then for a Tuesday court appearance, I'd like to try to avoid that. Historically, I went through, if history is any show of what might happen in the future, we might be talking about 3 or 4 times a year.
Thank you, Chief.
Any costs associated with this to the town?
The only cost that could be incurred would be medical expense to care for a prisoner that was in there. And I'm not sure that we wouldn't incur those costs anyways if the person was uninsured.
We kept them here.
Yeah.
Other than medical costs, there's not a per diem, anything like that?
There is no cost to become a member of this program. And there are some cost savings because we might not have to bring in additional staff through the long weekend to cover it, and we wouldn't have to transport them.
Okay. Everybody good?
Good.
Anybody want to make a motion, please, in the motion stock?
I move to enter into the memorandum of agreement with the Middlesex Sheriff's Office that would permit the police department to use the regional pre-arraignment safe keep holding facility as a holding facility for the short-term detention of persons arrested by the Hopkinton Police Department prior to arraignment, and to authorize the interim town manager to sign this agreement.
Second. Second. We have a motion and a second on the table. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous and so carries. All set. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Okay, item number 8 on tonight's agenda is a school committee vacancy. Mrs. Lazarus, if you could walk us through what our brief obligations are this evening. Aren't much other than acknowledging it and doing something else, I think. Go ahead.
So briefly, the charter lays out the process for filling vacancies in elected offices, and the school committee has already done their part by accepting the resignation and announcing it at a public meeting. So what needs to occur next is that the town manager's office will advertise the vacancy, and it has to be advertised for at least 17 days before an appointment is made. We will advertise, applications will come in, and the person will be appointed by a joint committee of the 2 boards together.
So there's no vote required this evening of the board?
That's correct.
Should we find a date that we can all meet, after 17 days?
We can work on that. We'll send out the advertising, and we'll coordinate with the school committee on available dates.
Everybody good?
Yeah.
I believe there's a representative from the schools here. If they have any questions, they can raise their hands, but not seeing any hands up, I think we're all set. So the board is now notified. The town manager's office is going to follow the charter and advertise the vacancy and seek applicants. And the applicants would file those applications with your office, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
It's an online application.
All right, everybody good? Next item on the agenda, item number 9, findings on the Center School and Elmwood School. The Select Board will receive an update from the Permanent Building Committee regarding the findings on the proposed uses of the Center School, Elmwood School, and Elmwood School buildings and discuss options. I believe we have the Permanent Building Committee Chair here, Mr. McIntyre.
With the permission of the chair, we'd like to try to defer it one and have Carrie come in and do hers first. That's going to be a little bit quicker. If that's okay with the chair. Number 10, item number 10.
Item number 10 is the employee appointment of Cody Slamman as a water technician at the Department of Public Works. I'm okay with that. Everybody okay with that? All right, we'll table for 1 minute. Carrie, please join us at the table and do your thing. So we're on item number 10 now, folks at home. This is a new employee appointment. Jessica, if you would do the honors, please.
I think Elaine reads the bio, and then I think Elaine reads the bio, and then I'll do the rest.
Okay. Mrs. Lazarus.
Okay, tonight we have Cody Slamman here for appointment as water technician in the water department. The role provides for the delivery of high-quality water through the water distribution network. It performs all necessary work related to the installation, maintenance, and repair of public water distribution systems. And the role ensures organizational efficiency in the application of policies, procedures, and methods. It involves frequent interpretation of policies, procedures, and guidelines, and might involve the development of recommendations consistent with directives, policies, and regulations. Cody has experience with the town of Westboro, DPW, as a sewer craftsman, and then moved over to the water department, with D&M Auto Parts in Framingham at the service and front desk, and in the clean room facility services in Framingham. His references reveal that he has a strong work ethic and learns very quickly in what can be a complex environment. He works very well independently and does what is asked of him. He volunteers every time when on-call openings become available and is very reliable. And a previous supervisor said that Cody loves water work and would be an asset to any town or city. He was described as having excellent customer service skills.
Great, thank you. Jessica.
So the interview panel was Carrie Reed, the Public Works Director, Eric Cardy, the Water Sewer Manager, Jed Fanuff, the Water Sewer Assistant Manager, and Kristen Merrill, the Human Resources Generalist. We advertised the position internally and externally. 3 candidates applied for the position. 2 were interviewed, and Cody rose as the top candidate.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments from the board on the appointment?
Questions?
No. No questions, but it looks like his background, is, from what he's doing in Westboro, would be a good compliment.
I just want to know why you choosing Hopkinton.
Really just a closer drive to home. I live in Ashland, so it's the next town over.
You're close at home, okay.
Have you driven through town lately?
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor.
I like your resume. You have the right licenses and great experience. Thank you for choosing our town. Congratulations.
Great. Cody, thank you very much for coming in this evening. This is a process we have to go through. I'm still not clear why the board's involved in some of this, but we'll cover that another time. I think this is great that you're getting an opportunity, and it's a great group of people, and Eric and his team do a fabulous job for us, and I think you'll fit in really well. So congratulations.
Welcome.
The chair will entertain a motion to appoint Cody Slamman as a water technician in the Department of Public Works.
I move to appoint Cody Slamman as a water technician for the Department of Public Works.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All set, Cody, you're unanimously hired. Congratulations.
Do we do a picture?
Eric, picture.
Yeah, we're going to do a picture. Somebody have the cameras? Go around here. I don't even know that guy. Where's Mary Jo?
I'm right here. Walk it slow tonight.
Great, thank you very much. Good luck, Cody. Take care. All right, back to item number 9, findings on the Center School and Elmwood School. We had set aside 45 minutes for this conversation. Mr. McIntyre, we are behind by about 40 minutes. Can you do this in the next 5 minutes?
No.
Can you give us the abbreviated version? Everybody knows the history of Center School, so try and kind of gloss over some of that stuff and get to the brass tacks if you would, please. You're very good at that.
All right. This on? Do I have to do anything with this?
Yes.
That's on? Okay. Good evening, Dan McIntyre, Chair of the Permanent Building Committee. Next to me, Dave Godfrey, recently reappointed. So we're here tonight to give an update on Center and Elmwood Schools reuse. You can go to the next slide. So the first couple of slides I'll go through very quickly. We made a presentation to the Select Board last December, but I thought we'd just go over these again for the 2 new board members. So our original charge was to figure out what to do with Center School based on the recommendations of the Center School Reuse Committee. Once the town decided to build a new school and vacate Elmwood in the coming years, our scope expanded to figure out what to do with Elmwood as well. So our first step was to update the needs study that the Center School Reuse Committee did. They did an excellent job on doing those needs, but we felt it was good to update those and actually turn them into physical space requirements. We also did a number of community outreach meetings. We had 2 public forums that were pretty well attended. I met with a number of boards. You can see up the Planning Board, Parks and Rec, a few meetings with the Chamber of Commerce. I met with the abutters of Center School, ZAC, Housing Authority, School Committee, or School Superintendent, and Historic Commission and Open Space to make sure that we got everyone's opinion on what we're doing. Next slide. So our architectural planning results indicated that we've outgrown Town Hall. The physical space in the building that we're in now needs to expand by at least 30% to cover the existing programs and employees here. When we met with Dr. Kavanaugh, one of the things, or 2 things came up. One was the integrated pre-K classrooms, and another was the life skills program, which she mentioned in a letter to you recently as well. The Center School Reuse Committee also had the life skills program at Center School, but the integrated pre-K was kind of a new thing that came up and kind of threw us for a loop because it's a lot of space and it's expensive space to build. But the life skills program we think is an excellent fit for one of the options we're going to show you later on. A gymnasium was important. We lost a gymnasium at Center School. Parks and Rec would like to have it replaced because they have a lot of programs that use gymnasiums. Community meeting spaces was a big thing. And this isn't just for government entities and committees. This is for non-government organizations. Nonprofits are always looking for spaces. They call the town manager's office or the facilities department for space, and we just don't have anything to offer. We also included space for the school administration. They're now leasing space. We know they like the space they're in and they don't want to leave, but we thought it was at least plan for it in case something changes in the future. And the facilities department doesn't have any space at all right now. They essentially work out of their cars and trucks. And storage was a big thing. Not only just record storage, but just bulk storage. The police chief has a boat that he'd like to put undercover and those type of things that we just don't have space for. In addition to our updating the needs, we also look back at the previous reports that were done. There's been a lot of good work done in the past. The vision statement, which came out of the Conway report. We had a housing report. We got the growth study committee. We got the master plan. There's a lot of good information in there that we thought was relevant to what we're doing, particularly to the center school, where we talk about downtown revitalization, where we really want to create some more activity, gathering spaces for people to come downtown and mingle and use our businesses. That was an important part of the master plan and the vision statement, as well as public-private partnerships to try to bring in the business community and the government organizations to kind of work together. Out of our public outreach, we heard a lot of what we normally hear throughout town. I'm sure you've heard all of these. The two big ones were affordable housing and high taxes. The affordable housing was really two components of that. One is the big A affordable housing, which would meet the definition of 40B and go toward our 10% goal. But I think most of the people that came to our public hearings were talking about the small A affordable. Housing in Hopkins is just not affordable for a lot of people. There's not much that we can do at Elmwood at Center School for that, but I have another slide coming up that will touch on that a little bit more. Downtown business expansion was brought up. Downtown parking was brought up. What to do at this town hall if we move out of it. There was some concerns about that. Again, community meeting spaces. High-density housing came up a lot as well. I think our community forums were right in line with when the MBTA zoning was coming to light, so there was a lot of talk about high-density zoning, and most of the people that came to our forums did not want more high-density zoning in town. And expanding the cultural arts opportunity was also a big thing. The Cultural Council is working on creating a cultural district in the downtown. I think that's a good thing and could benefit the town in many ways. Next slide. So putting it all together, we came up with 5 different scenarios that we presented last December. One was to split Town Hall between a new building at Center School, or reuse the existing Center School, and this building, Town Hall. Another one was to try to expand this building and fit everybody into this. The third option was build a new municipal center at Center School property. Fourth one was a new municipal center at Elmwood. And the fifth one was pretty much a redo of building a new municipal center at Elmwood School, but keeping this town hall so the town has some sort of a presence in the downtown. Next slide. So we did a kind of a Consumer Reports review of those 5 options. We felt that splitting town hall functions was not a good way to go. Likewise, when we look closer at expanding this building, it just didn't make sense. It wasn't practical. There'd be no room for future expansion. We still have parking problems. So we really focused on items C and D, a new town hall at Center School or a new town hall at Elmwood School. Next slide. So what would a new town hall at Center School look like? We've made the commitment to the Historic Commission and Historic District Commission to save Center School. We did hear from a lot of people about saving Center School, so we wanted to make sure that was included in our program. The rest of it, the 1950s section, the 1980s section, we saw no value in those at all. So we're proposing to tear those down, build a new wing off the 1928 building to serve as a new town hall. And it includes all the town hall departments we have here now, as well as bringing in Parks and Rec from Silks Walcott, bringing in the IT department that is now over on Fruit Street. We'll have a new gymnasium. We think the life skills program is a good fit in this area as well. We'll have meeting spaces, and we'll have more parking. Now this area isn't probably the greatest area for municipal parking lot. You're not gonna park here and then walk down to the Pan Thai to get something to eat there. It's a little distance to walk for that, but at least there'll be some more parking downtown. What's missing here is facilities and bulk storage. We didn't think building a storage facility in the center of town was a good fit. We think that's a better fit for Fruit Street. So our conceptual budget is $50 million to do that. If we were to add pre-K here, which is about another 15,000 square feet, the price jumps up to $67,000. 67 million. Next slide. Now, Elmwood School, we looked through the same thing. The Elmwood School building is a bigger building. It's almost 80,000 square feet. It's in better shape than the Center School building for sure. We send, 600 plus kids there now to school every day. We think that's a good fit for a rehab into a new municipal center. And we can fit all the town departments in there that we're going to do at Center School. We have room for facilities, and because it's a 78,000 square foot building, we can even reserve space for pre-K if that was so to the town's liking in the future. Cost on this one, $47 million. With pre-K, we got a typo in there. It bumps up to a little over $50 million on that one.
It's showing the same.
Yeah, it's there the same. It's that's the wrong figure. But it bumps up about another $10 million for pre-K, because the cost of at Center School pre-K, we're building new. The per square footage cost is a little bit more than if we rehab the existing space. So we can do a little bit cheaper here at Elmwood. But $47 million for a new town hall in Elmwood, $50 million for a new town at Center School, same number really. But we think that Elmwood School is a much better fit. Next slide. And here are some of the reasons. The Elmwood School site is a 19-acre site. It's big enough to fit the municipal center, and it's big enough to serve any other needs that we don't even know about now. We really want to plan for the next generation, and we can't predict what might happen, but with 19 acres in a relatively central location of town, we think is a prime place for the new municipal center. The building's bigger. We got almost an 80,000 square foot building. Versus trying to build that at Center School, it becomes more costly. As mentioned, future needs and growth was a big part of going to Elmwood. We put traffic up there as well. You can see we highlighted Elmwood as green and the Center School Town Hall as kind of neutral. The reason we did that is if we put the Town Hall at Center School, the staff that works there is going to be commuting to and from Town Hall. At the same time, we have peak congestion at downtown. So that's the only reason we felt that Elmwood was a better fit. The town staff doesn't have to navigate the town traffic during those peak congestion periods. Supporting the downtown vision, we put some question marks there because everyone has a kind of a different opinion on that. If we built a new municipal center at Center School, some feel that a town hall downtown is a draw in itself and will bring people in. If we build a new municipal center at Elmwood School, that could support the vision by freeing up Center School for some other use. So I'm kind of a proponent of the other use at Center School rather than a town hall at Center School. We have a downtown town hall right now, and it doesn't seem to be doing a whole lot for our downtown revitalization. So I think doing something different at Center School may be the spark we need. And we've gone over the costs, so we can skip to the next slide. Am I going fast enough or too fast? All right, okay. So when we talk about Center School, other uses, one that came up was to sell Center School and put in some sort of commercial district there. When we talked to the Chamber of Commerce, there was a lot of discussion about how we could put some businesses in there, kind of spark the downtown revitalization. A site right next to the town hall, they considered prime location. But we also had to consider the input we received from the residents of our community farms as well, and the vision statement and the master plan. So we looked at those and we came up with this kind of a mixed use concept where we were targeting small retail, small service shops in the Center School area, Center School property. But we also felt we had to include some housing there as an incentive for a developer. There's just not a big market for small retail shops in these areas, at least not in the current economic climate. So we felt that we had to put in some housing in there as an incentive to get the commercial development we wanted. So the RFP went out with the intent of creating a commercial development with a housing component. Unfortunately, we only received 2 bids, and they were essentially residential developments with a small commercial component. So we didn't get exactly what we wanted, but we did get something, and the information we got from both of those proposals helped us in our next step of evaluating what to do at Center and Elmwood. Next slide. Under the procurement laws in Massachusetts, before we send out an RFP, we have to put a value on the property we want to sell. We did this by 3 methods. We looked at the assessor's records. We hired a real estate professional that's involved in development. And then we also hired an independent appraiser to appraise the Center School property. So the assessors have the land value at $2 million, $1 million, the building value at $2 million for a value of about $3 million on that property. When we talked to the independent appraiser, we looked at a couple of different options there. First was both the appraiser and the real estate professional felt that housing was the highest and best use there. If we wanted to get the best value for selling that land, housing was the way to go. It's currently zoned as single-family, so we looked at what we could do as single-family with no zoning changes. The appraiser came up with a value of about $100,000 per lot. Real estate professional thought that was too low. They doubled that. They're close to $200,000 per lot. We felt we could get a maximum of 10 lots there, which would be the maximum number of lots we could put on a dead-end street. Would essentially have to demolish every building on that site, put in a small cul-de-sac to get that many lots. And whether we could get 10 lots or 8 lots is up for debate, but we see as a single-family by right use, we see the value is about $1 million. If we wanted to increase the density of housing on Center School, we could increase the value of the property to the taxpayers. We looked at both apartments and multifamily or condos. And for the condos, the appraiser and the real estate professional were very close on what they valued, right around $90,000 per unit. At 45 units, which is what we estimated, we came up with $3.6 million as a value, which is pretty close to what the assessors value at the property as. For apartments, they felt that the value of apartments was lower. For 60 apartments, 62 apartments would have a value of about $1.8 million. And there was really no science behind how we picked 45 units or 62 units. We looked at if this was to be MBTA zoned, which it was under consideration for at one time, the 6-acre front parcel would have supported 90 units by right. We know from our community outreach that that wasn't going to fly with anybody. Nobody wanted that. So basically, we kind of cut it in half and put 45 units in there. The real estate professionals from Leggett McCall felt that that was a reasonable number to put in for 6 acres. And then the final thing we looked at was if we just sold the 1928 building for commercial space, similar to what that was done years ago for the old high school up on Main Street that has that nice professional offices in there. They placed a value on that of about $400,000. So under the procurement law, just because we have to set a value on the land doesn't mean we have to sell it for that value. We can sell it below value if there's some other overriding public interests, such as cost avoidance, which we have in this instance, or economic development, which we hope to have in this instance as well. Next slide. So I'm going to go over both proposals. This is proposal number 1. In this case, this was the condo proposal. The developer proposed 45 condo units in a new wing behind the 1928 section. They're roughly about 1,300 square feet. They would be age restricted. We also asked for a 10% affordability, so there would be 40 market rate age restricted condos, and then there would be 5 affordable units, which we would not be able to age restrict. In the old 1928 building, on the first floor, they proposed that to be commercial, some type of restaurant. We don't have details on that restaurant, but some sort of restaurant that would kind of play into the gathering spot that was talked about in the master plan and the vision statement. The second floor of the 1928 building would be the amenities for the 45 condos. The purchase offer price was $100,000. The annual tax revenue, this is estimated by our assessors at $375,000 a year. Based on the results of the growth study committee, those 5 affordable units, we would expect that there'd be at least 3 children in there. at a education rate of about $16,000 per child, would have an education cost of about $48,000. We would have to contend with that at some point in the future. Next slide. The second proposal did not meet all of our RFP requirements, so we had to reject this one. But I thought it was important to go over with the board because there's some interesting information in here regarding affordable housing. So this particular developer was going to rehab the entire center school, the 1928 section, the 1950 section, and the 1980 section into apartments. There would be, let's see how many apartments. There's going to be 32 residential apartments, and most of those were going to be affordable apartments. And then also there would be a separate building with an additional 30 market rate apartments, totaling 62 units. So that was one of the things that didn't fit our criteria, was we exceeded the 45 limit on residential units. And they were going to put in a small cafe in part of the old center school. But what's interesting here is when we talk about affordability, they actually worked up what the rents would be at these apartments based on the adjusted mean income of Hopkinton residents. So for the affordable units, the rents would vary between $2,200 and $2,500 a month. Those are the affordable units. The market rate units go up to $3,400. So in our discussions during the community outreach, I don't know if a lot of people would think that $2,500 a month for a 1,000 square foot apartment is affordable, but based on our community statistics, that's what it would be. So the purchase offer on this one was $0, and it required the town to kick in $2 million, $1 million from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and $1 million from the CPA account. The annual tax revenue was $325,000, and we expect about 12 children would be in those affordable units with almost a $200,000 education cost in the coming years. So in addition to the affordable rates, the rents, you can see that affordable housing isn't going to get built in Hopkinton unless the town is willing to invest in it. They thought $2 million was the right number to put into this to make this work, but I don't think there's any political will to do that. If we were going to do that, it's already been master planned at Fruit Street. Part of the Fruit Street master plan has an affordable housing component over there. But again, there's been no political will to proceed with that at all. Next slide. So we looked at the offers, the $100,000 offer, the zero offer, and we tried to make some sense of that. And there are some site-specific constraints at Center School that would affect what a developer can offer. You know, the demolition of that property, of those back buildings, $900,000 is our estimate. There's $1 million worth of hazardous material in that building that has to be abated. And then the historic renovations of just the windows at this 1928 Center School, we're getting prices of $700,000 just to those windows. So a developer has to take that into account when they put their price together. But even with that, if we took our valuation of $3.6 million for 45 units, we were still expecting a price of around $1 million for this property. Of course, there's other things that developers have to weigh risk on. There's rezoning, there's permitting. Those are both big risks. We don't know what kind of conditions that those permits are going to hold. So the developer has to be somewhat cautious in its offer. There's also the problem of hidden defects. When we sell that building, we expect to just wash our hands of it. And if there are any hidden defects, it's on the developer. But when we went through it, there's also some benefits of buying a town property as well. When the developer goes to town meeting, goes to the planning board or the zoning board, he's going to have a representative of the town sitting next to him supporting that development. Center School has water and sewer right at the front door. They don't have to drill wells, they don't have to do septic systems. And it's a previously developed site, so when they start doing the stormwater design, they're going to be doing it as a redevelopment, which has less strict standards than a new greenfield site. So the question that we struggled with, and we're kind of pushing on to the five of you, is $100,000 or $2,000 per unit a reasonable offer? Some people are going to say yes, because it essentially gets rid of a white elephant. We don't have to spend money on it. My taxes aren't going up. I can save Center School. I can get, another amenity, another restaurant downtown. We can get some more housing, and it doesn't affect my taxes. Others will say, boy, $2,000 a unit, when we know that lots are going for $250,000, $300,000. I don't think I want to be the one that stands up at town meeting and says, we're going to sell Center School for $2,000 a unit. So that's something that we need to discuss and come to some resolution with. Next slide. So we wanted to go through the same numbers if we sell Elmwood. We went through the same evaluation. The assessors have Elmwood at about $6 million. The building value is much higher down there. The appraiser and the real estate professional, same numbers as Center School as at Elmwood for developing in there. So Elmwood is also a single family by right. We think we can get 10 lots in there. If we actually built a road to connect Wood Street to Elm Street, we could probably squeeze in a couple of more. But we're only looking at probably $1 million, $1.2 million for the value as it currently zoned. If we were to rezone it for a higher density, we'd certainly make more money. The 142 units is based on half of the MBTA zoning. At 15 units per acre, came up with about 287 units could be supported on Elmwood. So we cut that in half, and based on these valuations, we think the value of Elmwood is about $11 million. If we cut that further down to a smaller number like 66, we'd have about $6 million. The 66 number has some validity to it. There's two existing condo projects in Elm Street, Apple Tree and Indian Hill, I think it is. The density of those properties are about 3.5 to 4 units per acre. So we applied that same density to Elmwood School, came up with 66 units and a value of about $6 million. We have the same issues with Elmwood as we did at Center School. There'd be demolition involved. The demolition would be more expensive here because it's a bigger building. We've got about the same amount of hazardous material down there, $1 million. And the developer would still have to be concerned with rezoning, permitting, and hidden defects risks. So considering this, we think we could get an offer about $2 million. But our estimate was wrong at Center School, so our estimate's probably wrong at Elmwood too. Next slide. So if we think Elmwood is the best fit for a new municipal center, which we think it is, and we're not getting good value for the property by selling Center School, what do we do with it? So to answer that question, we went back to our needs and goals and asked the question, which needs and which goals could be better addressed at Center School than anywhere else in town? And what we came up with was going back to that gathering spot again. But in this case, we would do it with existing town programs, not a new town hall, but we've got Parks and Rec, we've got Youth and Family Services, the cultural programs. Those are all good programs that are going on now that lack in space. And we're not talking about just soccer fields and pickleball fields and that outdoor activity, but Youth and Family Services and Parks and Rec offer a lot of programs for a wide variety of people. They've got the chess and the art and the Lego buildings, and they got all kinds of things that need space for that we just don't have now. When Youth and Family Services does a big event, they have to lease space because we don't have space for them to do that in. And it also would give us an opportunity to have community meeting spaces for those nonprofits and other organizations that come to us looking for space that we have to turn away now. Next slide. So what would that look like? So we think we could rehab the 1928 building into meeting spaces, activity rooms, community rooms, and the life skills program we think would be a perfect fit for this building. The conceptual budget of that is $13 million. It also brings in, we've got the municipal parking, we've got trailhead parking for the trails that Peter LaGoya are planning there and have already built some of them. And the adaptive playground is looking for a home. We think this would be a great fit for that. And there's still space left over if we wanted to build fields or some outdoor activity space there. Next slide. And we think, as I said, this is a gathering spot. We think it would be a great asset to the downtown revitalization. But to make it really work, we need that public-private partnership. And this is where we reached out to the Hopkins Center for the Arts. They're currently doing some fundraising for an expansion up at 98 Hayden Row, which is also a town-owned building, because their program has blossomed so much. And they felt that they could fit into Center School probably better than they can by expanding 98 Hayden Row. They certainly wouldn't leave the Hayden Row site because they need both sites, but they would love to expand down to Center School. And we see that as some big benefits, both in money. Their fundraising can help support some of the rehab of this building. But more important than that is there'd be a presence in this building at all times. The Hopkins Center for the Arts is there, I think probably 6 days a week, maybe 7 days a week. There's going to be a presence in that building. There's going to be activity. There's going to be something for people to go to. Whereas if it was just Parks and Rec or Youth and Family Services, it would be an empty building sometimes, or would have to hire more staff to staff it. But that public-private partnership between the Center for the Arts and Parks and Rec and Youth and Family Services and the life skills program up at the center, up at the school, we think is a great fit for downtown. If we're totally wrong and it's not a success, there's still land out there that we could build housing on later on. It takes a leap of faith and it takes an investment in the town to move forward with this. But I think it's the right thing to do. If we did it the opposite way and sold it for housing, it's going to be housing forever. We're never going to be able to get it back. So here's is a use for this that I think is going to help the town departments, revitalize the downtown, and be a real asset to everything downtown. Next slide. We just want to touch base on this building that we're in tonight. We don't see a big need for this building anymore if we built a new municipal center at Elmwood School. So we would probably recommend selling it. It's not worth a heck of a lot here. The assessors have a value of $2 million. The 6 Walcott building next door would add another $400,000 to that. But it may be very similar to the center school value of $400,000 that we got for just selling the center school if we were to sell it to a private developer. Under the current zoning, it would be very similar to what would be happening at Hopkett & Drug, where the first floor would have to be retail. They'd probably put apartments on the second floor. Another option would be we could deed it over to the Housing Authority. We feel we could get about 10 subsidized apartments in here. That doesn't sound like a lot, and it's not a lot. When I met with the Housing Authority, there's a waiting list across the state for Housing Authority units, between well over 5,000 people on that waiting list to get into subsidized housing. But if we were to do that, Hopkins would do its little part. And then 6 Walcott would become the municipal parking lot it was supposed to be and support that downtown revitalization. Next slide. So moving forward, this is what we think is a viable path. Center School would do the Community Arts Center and the downtown parking. Elmwood School would be the new municipal office building. We'd have the gymnasium there. It already exists for Parks and Rec. And there's enough space in there for the facilities department and additional record storage that we're leasing space for now. Existing town hall, that needs more discussion, but it could be an RFP for sale, or it could be deeded to the Housing Authority to get some more subsidized housing in Hopkinton. Over at Fruit Street, we're not proposing anything currently, but we think that's the right spot for a bulk storage building for the many things that we've collected over the years. And I just want to touch again on that. That's been master planned for affordable housing. So if there's ever the will to move forward with that, there's space for that over at Fruit Street. So we looked at the current 5-year capital plan, and we tried to squeeze these numbers in to fit that as best we can. We know we've just spent a ton of money on new schools. We know the MWRA water connection is coming up next year and the following year. But there's, in year 27, 28, kind of light years on the capital plan. We thought that might be a good place to squeeze in $13 million to do Center School. We currently have $20 million on the capital plan for next year to do something at Center School. We think next year would be a design effort. We'd like to come in for $1 million on architectural services next year, and then push out or reduce that $20 million that we got earmarked down to $13 million for years 27 and 28 to do the construction. And then when Elmwood becomes open, we think the school is going to move out of there sometime around 2028. Would want to come in and do some architectural work during those years. But construction probably wouldn't happen until well beyond our current 5-year plan. Would be out into 2033, 2034, to spend that money. And as you can see, that $46 million that we estimated in 2025 dollars balloons up to $64 million because of escalation. We assumed about a 5% escalation rate on this going over those 7 years. Whether that holds true or inflation comes down, maybe that number will change, but the longer we wait to do things, the more things cost. So with that, I will turn it over to someone else to talk.
That was extremely well done. You guys have obviously put a ton of time and energy into this and thought it out from all kinds of different angles. And as somebody in the construction business that looks at stuff like this all the time in different ways, and even now doing the thing I'm doing, I think it's been really thorough review. So thank you very much for that. What is your ask of us this evening, if anything?
Well, there's one immediate need. We still have an RFP out there, proposal out there that we haven't acted on. We've got to make a decision on that and get back to the developer with a yay or nay.
That's the $100,000 offer one.
That's the $100,000 offer.
All right, so there's that floating out there.
That's floating out there. So we got to make a decision. It doesn't have to be tonight, but sometime in the near future, we got to get back to that developer with an answer.
And then going down the path, we have to sort out all these different options and consider what's the best way to go. Fair?
Going down the path, we'd like you to really consider that community arts center at Center School as a viable option to promote the downtown. That obviously is going to require some money. So we'd be looking for you to review that and hopefully support that program.
All right, so with that ask, which isn't much of us this evening, and given the hour, I think we need to kind of move through this quickly as we can. Any thoughts about the presentation, specific questions, but again, not deciding anything tonight. Mr. Manning.
Some quick clarification questions. So the RFP came out and the proposal is 100,000 per unit for 10 houses, the first one, right? And that was amounting to 1 million. So help me understand a little bit. In Hopkinton, a new house would be 1.82 million. And any land usually would go, I don't know, but generally 500, 600. So why is this so low compared to this land and housing?
Well, I think you're comparing retail price versus wholesale price. A developer is not going to pay $500,000 for a lot and build a house. They're going to pay lower. So we were pricing up the developer's cost, what the town could get it to by selling to a developer. If we would develop it ourselves, yeah, we could sell those condos for more than $100,000 a unit, but we're not in the building business.
No, we're not. But it sounds awfully low. That's why I asked that question. So you think, based on the assessors and everything, this is a reasonable number?
Well, which 100,000 are we talking about?
Again, the 10
the appraised $100,000?
The appraised 100,000. Yeah.
I think it's low. I think the Leggett McCall price of around $200,000 is a more reasonable number.
Thank you. The other just comment is, I think, again, thank you for the thorough and detailed analysis and projection of various ideas, collection of all of these. Tons of work went in. It certainly shows that. So thank you for all the hard work and wonderful work. There's a lot to process. In general, I think any capital large amount is going to be challenging during this time, as you know. And we want to make it the best of both worlds. We want to, I mean, personally, I like the Arts Center project. I also like the 55 plus. community project, because I think both are gonna be helpful from our vibrant downtown and promoting art, which we all love, and the HCA is doing wonderful work. We can expand on that. The other one is we have affordable housing challenges and seniors finding it harder to sustain in larger houses, even if they had it through legacy or something because of the taxes. And there's demand for staying close to their families. So there's a lot of value on that. And the difference comes down to, and again, a lot to process, is that how much we are willing to invest and how much we can do without investing a tons on capital project, as well as our long-term goal of affordable housing, economic development, and all the good things, how we can optimize those. So just top of the head comments, we'll process more, but thank you for providing all the information.
Ms. Lafreniere.
I've seen some of this report before, and I like a lot of it, and I think you've done an excellent job, and I wish we had an answer. I wish we could just grab onto something and say, okay, this is it, we got it. But there's just too much just to consider in it, and it's time consuming. I'm sorry, I wish I could say, let's go.
Well, Mary Jo, we weren't expecting an answer tonight, so don't worry about that.
No answers tonight.
No answers tonight, no.
Does the RFP that you received, because I do a lot of RFPs and some allow for negotiation after the fact and some do not. What does this allow for once submitted and selected? Can you still negotiate?
We can do some negotiation. I checked with Maureen McKeon, the procurement officer. The way we wrote the RFP gives us a little flexibility to negotiate, but we can't really change any substantive terms of that. And
what we put out, but they
we
can
put
come
out.
back and maybe readdress some things if they're the chosen entity we're trying to sort something through.
Well, I think we've got to select that particular offer, and then once we get into the actual purchase and sale negotiations and develop that, there's going to be changes, I'm sure.
Yeah. Okay. Joe.
So great job, first of all, like very thorough, like they already referred to. For the two responses on the RFP, was that expected or was that, low or high? Like what, just in general, do you expect with an RFP of this size?
We were disappointed. We did a request for interest probably a year prior to that to see what kind of interest there were from developers, and we got about 10 responses on that. But the RFP actually required developers to outlay some cash to put this proposal together. So, and at the same time, Hopkins Drug was going on the market, and my understanding that sold for about $3.5 million, and they're proposing about 40 units there. So our appraisals weren't that far off, but our offer came in a lot lower than the Hopkins Drug offer.
Yeah, going from 10 on the RFI to 2, that seems like a big gap.
Yeah. We were disappointed we only got that many.
Was it like a normal time frame to respond, or you alluded to a cost of, responding, which I think is, at least I'm in a very different line of business, but that's a normal thing, right? You make investments if you want to apply to something. So it just seems off to me.
It was low, we felt, based on the interest we saw earlier. But we understand it too. I mean, it's a challenging site. It's got a lot of risk to it. So developers are wary about doing things.
Yeah, I like my initial thought is, because again, you laid out a really comprehensive plan, right? And it seems really premature to move forward with the RFP, especially if we can't really negotiate a lot of it without having all those other answers in place, right? Because in my mind, if we're trying to figure out the long-term town hall home and we give up one of the two places that it could be, where's our leverage point in negotiations moving forward, right? I don't like that idea. So if it was, up to me, I'd probably pause things, hold off, figure out the rest of our plans before we respond to the RFP. I understand that we have to make a decision on that, but I don't know, I don't like the timing of it.
Yeah, I think even if we only got one offer and that offer came back with more commercial space that we had hoped for and even a little bit more money, it doesn't have to be the full, $1 million that we expected, but even a little bit more money, I'd probably be coming to you with a different presentation tonight. Like I say, I'm not that interested in going in front of town meeting and say we're going to sell Center School for $2,000 a unit.
I would agree with you.
Anything else?
No, I'm good for now.
Okay. Amy?
Yeah, thank you for doing this. I went to one of the forums, I think in December, and I really feel like you listened to what people were asking for, and
I'm a good listener.
Yeah. And despite the price tag, I think the Community Arts Center is a really good idea. And it was a lot of things that people want, and it's a fairly quiet use. I think the neighbors would be okay with that. And it wouldn't require rezoning, is that correct? Because it's a municipal use?
I think when we did the Center for the Arts, I think we had to do some rezoning up there.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Remember. Maybe it was just historic we had to go to on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the only drawback is that even though it's not as much as Elmwood School, $12 million is a lot of money, but hopefully we could get grants for that, and I think the community would appreciate and like that Community Arts Center. And it would fit the life skills program that the superintendent was looking for, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
And then, hold on. And
Just a note, in that $12, $13 million, we did throw in a big contingency. There's about $3 million of that is just contingency for unknowns. We think the real number is around 10.
Yeah, and I had been previously reluctant with the idea of moving town hall out of the downtown, but when you put the Community Arts Center, which has a lot of the services people would want downtown, I'm more willing to accept maybe moving the town hall to Elmwood School. So I appreciate you putting it all together and laying it all out. I think we need, now the community will have heard this tonight and they can weigh in too, but I think it's some good options.
I had one last question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So if we chose to not move forward with the RFP response right now and kind of reevaluate all of our options, would we owe anything? I know these developers put money out to respond. Are we liable for anything, or do we just have the ability? Okay.
Through the chair.
Yep.
Quick question on Elmwood. I saw the options. So a couple of layers to it. One is 45 million, 67 million or something. Both are obviously pretty expensive for what we are looking at. But have you explored just as is how much and how effectively we could utilize it to meet our next 5-10 years of demand from the town hall? In that case, meaning almost no investment, but as soon as we have the Elmwood freed up, a lot of the town's extra capacity need, be it for people first, and then storage and others can be fitted in there with minimal cost, because it's a living, breathing building now that's being used.
Right. We'd have to spend some money down there. A lot of the numbers that we talked to tonight, we relied on the elementary school building committee. They did a lot of great work. They had some great numbers. They have a lot of information on Elmwood School. We can't just move people down there. There's some code issues and things that just have to be addressed. So we could kind of piecemeal it, like you say, do some work, move people in, but the rest of the work just never gets done because we got people working there, and it just, I think it's better to go in once, do it right, then move everybody from here down to there. Certainly it's expensive, but it's going to be just as expensive the other way too. It's just going to be over a longer period of time.
Thank you. Yep.
So on the RFP piece, the 100K I view is 2.1 million, because we're going to have to go spend, whoever is going in there to get start fresh is going to spend a couple $1 million on dental and hazmat alone. The hazmat in that building is a nightmare. Okay, that is a 100-year-old building. There is lead paint everywhere. There is stuff in those pipes. God only knows what's behind those walls. And we will find all that out, and every bit of it to anybody else but us will be a change notice if we hire somebody to do it for all kinds of different things. So I think the 100K is really 2.1 million kind of as the offer, but I suspect, based on the RFP being flexible, that number could evolve a little bit. In other ways, I think the 100 grand could change, but I don't think the 2 million is going to change for us other than go up, right? So I think that's a challenge for us. I'm going to be the bearer of bad news on everything for the next 3 years when it comes to money.
As you should be.
Our current, thank you.
That's why we voted for you.
Yeah, exactly. Our current debt position today is approximately $85 million. How much do we owe right now? $85 million bucks. Our highest debt position in Hopkinton's history before is $69 million, $70 million. So we're at $85 million today. We're going to $220 million on the books. I know the state's going to back some of that off, but we're going to settle in about 165 of cash out the door. $165 million. The current average home in Hopkinton right now is valued at $850,000. They're paying about 12 grand in annual taxes. That same house 5 years ago was paying about $8 million or $8,000 in annual taxes. I know because I own one of them. And so the taxes have been going up. Imagine what your taxes are going to do when we go to $165 or $70 million. They will not double like the 85 million in debt's going to double, but the debt service is a huge number in our annual operating budget. So we're going to be spending, I would guess, I'm estimating the average home in Hopkinton, so please don't quote me on this, just for conversation's sake, is going up $6,000 to $8,000 a year in the next 4 to 5 years, per year for a number of years. FY 27 and 28 is the peak, and then it's going to stay that way for a little while with what we're building right now, right? And I'm all for what we're building right now, but we have to recognize that we're going to $220 million in debt. Our cap, so our valuation, our equalized valuation in Hopkinton is $5.1 billion. We went over $5 billion a few years ago. I think it was in 2019, 2020, something like that. So the equalized valuation, the total net worth of this community, this town, all this commercial, all the residential, everything, $5.1 billion. State law says we can borrow up to 5% of the equalized valuation. That's $258 million. We're going to almost max out the credit cards in the next couple of years. How are we going to find another $50 million for a new town hall in the next 5 to 10 years? I just don't see it. I don't think the state's going to allow us to do it, let alone what we want to do. We don't have the debt, we don't have the ceiling in our budget. We don't have the ceiling in what we can go to the banks and borrow. So we have to consider the total impact every time we talk about anything north of 100 grand. We don't have the money right now. We're a highly successful community that's going to have a huge asset base when we're done with these great buildings, but it's going to cost us an enormous amount of debt service. And it's going to talk about running people out of town. That is going to run people out of town, especially if you throw another $50 million on top of that and move town hall. So I'm a big proponent of trying to figure out a public-private partnership at Center School. I think we can do a sale-leaseback thing where we can lease back that space, and I think we can cut a deal that has lease options in it, that we could buy the building back at 5, 10, 15, 20 years, things like that. I think there's a lot of things we could do creatively to get what we want, like that Center for the Arts, to get the space for the schools, to get the space for other things, without spending a lot of our money. Let's let the developers spend the money. Let them make a profit over a 20-year period. Let them go to the bank. They're not maxing out their credit cards. We're already close to maxing out our credit card. And when we do that, there's one other big problem. And I talked about it for the last 3 months. Our bond rating is going to drop like a rock. And that $220 million or $170 million after the state money comes in that we owe in debt, the interest on that is going to spike, which is going to further drive up our tax rate. So we've got a problem in town that we have a, you know, you're right out of college. Here's your first credit card, kids. Go for it. I need that card back, you already maxed it out, right? We're in that kind of scenario right now as a community, and we just have to be very, very careful how we spend this money. So I think we got to keep our options open. We got to try and find a partnership that gets us what we want, and I think we can do that with a sale leaseback type proposition of some sort, and we got to be flexible so that we don't go bankrupt, literally. We'd be the most successful community in Massachusetts history to go bankrupt if the state pulls the plug on us, says you're done. We can't allow that to happen. So just something to think about, like,
No, I mean,
it's a huge number.
That's not lost on us. We heard that throughout all our community forums, that same argument. But that public-private partnership isn't going to get you a $50 million town hall. At some point, we're going to have to vacate this place and build a new town hall. It doesn't have to be in 2032. It doesn't have to be, right away, because we've been serving the town out of this building for a while. We could continue doing that. But the Community Arts Center at Center School, I think, falls right in line with the public-private partnership you just talked about.
Yeah.
Because when we talked about $13 million, $3 million as contingency, which wasn't likely we're going to spend. But we've got CPA money. I can't speak for Ken, but we've talked to them in the past, and they're willing to put money into historic renovations of that. We've got the Hopkins Center for the Arts that was willing to pony up some money to put toward this. If the cultural council gets approved, there's going to be grant money for that can be applied to this. So we can whittle that $13 million down. We're not going to whittle it down to zero for sure, but whittle it down to some reasonable number, I think. And we get what we want there without what we don't want. Now, there's no guarantee that we can get rezoning for housing at Center School past the town meeting. That's not a guarantee by any means. That could turn into a very divisive fight. But if you made a persuasive economic argument, you might win, but no guarantees on rezoning there.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
totally
there's
good.
no guarantee on any of these, because we have to go through the committees, we have to go to the town, and everyone has to approve and agree, right? But I agree. I think, definitely tax concern is on our top of our head, and in anything that we can delay 5-10 years at least from investment perspective, and anything that can generate revenue and help us at least kick off the economic development journey that we've been talking about would be the desired state. And the cultural center is, very much in line with our town's character and all the good things that we cherish from art and culture. However, we'll need to kind of solve that equation, that how much it exactly means, essentially, and can there be, other grants, donations that can chip into that. Now, going to the other side as well, and this is, I know you have done tons of research and analysis. Can we combine them both in some ways, that we also add some housing that can help generate some housing, some commercial on the front or the premise that can generate some additional revenue like you have projected, but it also solves and encourages the art center in the back. And combining those, maybe we don't spend any, but we get what we want, and we get affordable housing as well. Just being creative based on your
No, that's an absolute possibility. If we develop that community center in the 1928 building, we still get the land behind it that could be built out for housing. So that's absolutely a possibility. And just want to point out, Brian, the numbers that you all quoted included that $20 million place marker for Center School that we have for next year. We'd actually be taking that out and reducing that down by $7 million, so.
That's a step in the right direction.
That's
Well
it.
done.
Exactly.
With that positive note, let's end it right here for now.
Back on schedule yet?
We could talk about this for hours on end. Excellent presentation, a lot of stuff to think about. Thank you guys very much. Thank the whole committee for helping us get to this point, and we'll talk again for sure.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, we got to move, folks. We're going to try and pick up the pace here a little bit very quickly. Matt Abrams is here. I saw him earlier. I think I got the name correct tonight, keeping his father out of my head. So Matt, you made the presentation at our last meeting. There were a couple of different options. I don't want to rehash all that we talked about then. Let's start with what are the options on the table this evening as far as percentages? I thought I heard there was a 40% option and there was a 17.5% option. Were there any other options for us on the water side?
And our CFO, Kyla LaPierre, is on the Zoom.
Okay, great.
Could lab her.
Good evening, Matt Abrahams, the Abrahams Group. So we have, for your consideration this evening, we have 2 water rate options. And 2 of them, they were 2 of the 3 presented last time when we heard 2 weeks ago. Option 1 being the 40% option that was presented 2 weeks ago. Option 2 being the 50% option. We know.
0, did you say?
5-0, yes.
Okay.
The other option that you referred to, the 17.5, we believe that's no longer a viable option. The reason why is because we received some guidance from DOR since we last met with you related to the recent retained earnings authorizations that took place. We only thought that that option, the 17.5, was viable if the funding source could be changed for those authorizations that took place. And we believe that some of the authorizations need to remain as is because technically there are retained earnings available to cover some of them, just not all of them. So our understanding at this point is that retained earnings would be reserved for some of those authorizations, just can't be reserved for all of them because there aren't enough retained earnings to cover all of them. So with that said, we believe that option is no longer viable because it was assuming that the funding source for all of the authorizations would be able to be changed at an upcoming town meeting. So for water, before you this evening, we believe the choices are option 1, 40%, option 2, 50% for that reason.
And if we didn't do 40 or 50%, are you suggesting that the Water Enterprise Fund would be upside down and we'd have a negative cash flow?
We believe that that retained earnings is a high likelihood that it gets certified negative this year with where things currently are. So that would be the upcoming certification over the next few months. Your rate decision this evening, assuming you make one, would affect the following fiscal year, FY25. I think it's going to be a serious challenge to avoid that at this point based on where the water fund is. But there's an opportunity to try to raise additional revenues for the upcoming fiscal year of FY25 to try and dig out of that hole, so to speak.
The retained earnings of the Water Enterprise Fund get viewed by the bonding companies separate than the overall town budget and town position on finances, or is it tied into it? And so if we went into a negative position on the retained earnings, would that impact our bond rating, do you think?
No.
I don't believe so. Yeah.
I'm sorry?
It's a separate enterprise, so it's run as its own business.
So it borrows money under its own credit rating and not ours?
Correct.
Okay. And what would that do if we went, let's say we did go negative, I don't know, 100 grand, 200 grand, whatever the number is. What would that do to the operations of the business? Could the business then borrow from the town? I think we've loaned some money in the past to these operating entities, haven't we?
Occasionally.
Yeah, I think if you go back, it's a guess, but within the last 10 years, there was some borrowing related to the sewer enterprise fund that took place at some point. Yes.
Yeah, I recall those days. Okay. Board members, Mrs. Ritterbusch.
I don't think I have too many questions. I mean, I know it's a lot, but we have a lot of water projects that are necessary and important that are coming up, so I understand that it has to go up. But I know it's going to be hard for people to pay too. So I don't think I have any questions. We have the full report here.
Mr. Clark.
So if we revisited the 17.5%, I know you said it doesn't seem viable, but what would retained earnings look like under that? How far negative would we go?
Approximately, Matt. We don't need exact numbers here. Scale.
So regardless of what rate change takes place for FY '25, I think that the projected amount for the next certification, which is really related to the current fiscal year of FY '24. So the rate doesn't have an impact on where retained earnings will end up in the next certification. So whether it's 17.5, whether it's 40, presumably retained earnings would end up in a similar place for the next certification. And we have that as, right now, just over $200,000 in the negative.
Okay.
200K in the negative.
Yes.
And we talked last time about there was no like fines or penalties for having negative retained earnings, right?
That is my understanding, but I believe DOR will expect the town to take action to try and remedy it as quickly as possible, yes.
Okay.
Anything else?
Yeah, I mean, this is tough because like the 40% seems like a non-starter to me for the residents, but I also recognize that we do need to support our water department and these projects. I think we've looked at the capital projects over the next couple of years, you know, and I know not everything was MWRA, but that's been discussed. I think there was a lot, like the storage tank at the school, water main replacements. Can you guys just like elaborate on, you know, how we're prioritizing those things? Can some of those things be shifted around to, you know, provide us some relief in this?
So things can be shifted around, obviously. The investment's going to have to be made at some point. So you're just pushing it down the road. So it's a policy decision now of, you know, do we pay now, do we pay later? How do we want to manage this account? But eventually the work needs to get done. The infrastructure doesn't get newer, it doesn't get better, it just gets older and needs more work as we go along. We know that we have regulatory requirements that are coming down from EPA that we don't meet, that are going to come soon. We know we have infrastructure that's aging that needs to be replaced. So it's not a question of, you know, can we push it down the road? Sure, but we're going to have to do it eventually. So you guys can make the decision about how we fund it, but eventually the work's going to have to get done.
And,
Through the chair, sorry.
nope, you go.
Through the chair. Also, a couple of these are regulatory requirements, like the tank is being pushed by the DEP. For probably the past 6 years, they've asked us to come up with a plan to rectify that. So we've kept trying to extend it and extend it and extend it. We're nearing, I think, the end of our allowable extensions.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
This is the front here.
I just, you know, I'm not going to do 50%. I don't really believe. I've been looking at the figures, and I think 40% is the right number, unfortunately. And I do think it is unfortunate, but I do think that's what we're going to need to do.
Mr. Manning.
Yeah, no, I think 50% is outrageous, and I'm sure residents will find it that way too. We need to stagger it, and I was looking at 15-20% tops, and maybe staggering for subsequent years. So how do you manage that? Obviously, you're going to go negative on retained earnings, as I'm hearing, right? But have you explored other creative ways of financing? For example, we have about, how much was our free cash this year? Almost 5 million or so. So we have remaining from there, and maybe Kyla, you can help. Is there any way we can subsidize this for the first couple of years until it normalizes in terms of yearly rate hikes? If so, you know, how can we be creative on that? Sorry.
No, so apologies, but the enterprise has to run as its own business. So any kind of borrows, if you borrow from the town, they have to be paid back.
Okay.
So you do have to make that consideration.
Yeah, that's a great insight. So if we run this scenario and say we, hypothetically, we are going 15% or 20%, and that creates 100,000 in gap, right? But it doesn't impact our bond rating. It doesn't impact the material spending right now, but it's an ongoing carry over negative retained earnings. But we have to, at some point, fill it up either from additional earning or from town approved some kind of budget. I'm losing, the scenario because of lack of information. But have you run these type of scenarios? Essentially, let's assume we don't want to go 50%. We want to go to a more reasonable percent. How can we make it work? You are the experts, Kayla, you are the finance master. Help us make it work. How do you do that? Any ideas right now, or do you want to take some time and do some research and analysis and get back to us with your advice?
So honestly, if you're going to borrow free cash from the town, it's going to take away from other possibilities that you're going to do with the town, such as if you wanted to make additional payments on the existing debt or something, or on capital projects, et cetera, in order to reduce the amount of debt that you're going to incur, or we are going to incur in the coming years. So it's a give and take, and I think that's what the consideration is at this time. We did run numbers. 40% is the ideal. So 40% is going to get us where we need to be in the ideal state. At the absolute minimum, and I'm saying minimum because it will just get us in the positive, very little in the positive, is a 30% number. But again, that's not going to have any highway for any kind of projects or any kind of emergencies that the town may have in the coming year.
Understood. That's why I'm asking these questions, because we want to understand, the risks and the scenarios that can be worked out or may not be. But I appreciate that. I don't know. I'm still 30% is better, and I would probably go for something like that than 50%. But I still, kind of feel uncomfortable when we are actually seeing taxes getting raised for good reasons, and it's not exactly that we are just, using a credit card for fun or party. These are very much essential for the quality of our life of our residents, quality of our town's continued excellence, which we all want it, but we want to do it at a highly prioritized basis that we can manage and handle going forward. And knowing that we have MWRA and other coming up, or more work on existing infrastructure, whatever we decide in the future, I do see that the water enterprise fund is going to have a very difficult next few years. So something to, creatively think about. I understand that no money is free money, so if we take it from free cash or our reserve, we will lose spending it on something else. But that's the question I think we all need to solve and decide, that as much as we can mitigate the pain on the taxes, I would be for it. But
And there was also, I just want to reiterate something that Matt said last meeting. There was also preparation for this rate increase in last year's meeting, where everyone was preempted to know that the rate was going to increase significantly going into this year. So it shouldn't be that much of a surprise.
well,
For
yeah.
most. Fair point. Anything else?
No, I think I covered what I
Anybody else?
One last question. So if we went with the suggested 40%, how much confidence would we have in what the rate increases would look like next year or the year after?
So in my mind, 40% is more of a short-term thing, meaning we're trying to get retained earnings built back up to a healthy level. We're trying to cover the current operating situation. There are capital projects on the horizon, as Kerry mentioned. So in order to fund those capital projects as currently in the plan, there would be a need for additional large increases going forward beyond just the 40%. So based on the current capital plan as it's currently constructed, we're foreseeing another additional decent size increase on the water side, especially with the MWRA connection as a strong possibility.
Okay, thank you.
At the end of the day, have the residents of Hopkinton over the last 20 years paid far less than the average water bill in Metro West than other communities, or, and now it's catching up to us, or is this, we're already very high and we're going higher, or where are we compared to others?
I have not looked at that for comparison. Are you aware?
In my opinion, we're below or, pretty comparable to other folks. I mean, one of the reasons, we have to appreciate the value of water. It's essential to life. It's something we need to invest in. When you look at this, even with the 40%, because 40% seems like so much, the average bill is still about $45 a month. I pay more for Wi-Fi. I pay more for electricity. $45 a month for something that's so essential is a great value for what we're getting. When you look at the cost per gallon, it's pennies. When people go and buy a big giant thing of Poland Springs for $20, if you fill that up with our water, it'd be cents. So I think people need to appreciate the value of water and how much you're getting for what little we are investing right now. I mean, it's considerably, compared to any other private utility, even public utilities, this is a great value. So, but comparatively, MWRA communities pay a higher fee, and we're going to see that going forward. It's because you're paying for that. But I would think other communities about our same size, it's comparable. I don't know if you know any.
If I could do, Mr. Chair, one other big aspect of this is through the years, the retained earnings has been used to artificially deflate rate increases. So a lot of those earlier rate increases have remained a lot lower because retained earnings were used, and that's not really the purpose of retained earnings. It's to use for the capital projects and the other stuff going forward.
Okay. All right, anything else? Anybody have any ideas, suggestions? Anybody want to try to make a motion here to see what we can do with this rate for the water?
I guess I was just going to add, it is really important that we don't go as low as possible, that we need to have money, and like Carrie was saying, for emergencies. Things happen in the winter, we need to fix them. We can't keep putting things down the road. We've had a lot of problems with our water system. We need to invest in it so that we can have clean water. So I am in support of the 40% increase, even though I really won't enjoy paying it. I think that is what we have to do this year.
Does anybody care to make a motion?
I would make a motion to set the water rate for fiscal year FY25 with an increase of 40% effective July 1st, 2024, as follows. Where is this section? I'll just scroll back in the document here.
So these cubic feet and dollar minimums, we can figure that out after the fact. That's not the major decision here. The decision is the rate increase. Is that correct?
Okay. So
Yeah, I think we can just,
Those were in Carrie's memo.
they'll get calculated.
What's that? Or as written in,
the
I
memo.
could say it as written in the document or packet.
There's a motion on the table. Is there a second?
Maybe amend the motion to the other reasonable but manageable. You mentioned 30%, was it? You mentioned it?
Kyla mentioned it.
Kyla, I like that number. Can you help us justify that?
Well, it's not my recommendation. I'm saying that will get you out of the red, but if there are any emergencies in the town, you're going back in the red.
So help me understand that. What type of emergencies are we talking about? Because if it's in a capital emergency, we'll have to handle it with capital anyways. Right? The retained earnings is never going to be able to pay for MWRA costs, or even the new, if we need to.
We won't have any
cost.
money to do, we won't have any money to do anything. We will literally have pennies.
We'd have to borrow from ourselves at that time.
But we have the operating budget already.
Right, we could do it. We could find the cash, but we'd have to borrow from ourselves. The enterprise fund has to come to us, we give them the money, and then they're gonna have to pay it back. So that's gonna add to the debt position, and it's gonna add a little bit more pressure down the road. But living on the edge is probably not a bad idea. But we have a motion on the table that had 40 in it. Are you willing to adjust that 40, Amy, or you want to stay put?
I'm going to stay put. Someone else could make a different motion.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table. Is there a second for 40?
Second.
We have a motion on the table, a second at 40%. Discussion on the motion on the table, please. Amy, we know where you're at. Mr. Clark.
I mean, what was I think we talked at 40%, the average user cost increase, was that the $148 per year?
Yes.
And what would the difference be at 30%?
120.
Do you really have it? Kyla, are you in front of a computer? Can you?
Wouldn't it just be a ratio of the 150? If you're dropping 25%, you're going down to 120 or so?
I have the difference here. I think this is right. It's close enough. The difference, if it were 30%, it'd be $111 annually.
Okay. All right, that helps about it. No other questions?
Anybody else? Motion on the table?
No, nothing else. I think, I mean, we have to do what we have to do. If the board, everyone agrees, I'd be okay with the experts' recommendation, but it's going to hurt a lot of people. We have seen our low income increasing from 10 to 30% in some of the data over the last decade. So it is going to hurt a lot of people, and it just seems that our hands are tied. I feel bad about that.
Okay, there's a motion on the table. It's been seconded. There's been discussion specific to raising the water rate 40% for FY 2025, effective July 1, 2024. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, it's unanimous and so carries at 40%. Item number 12, and is that all we had to do tonight, or do you guys want to do the sewer as well? Okay, so talk to us about sewer, please.
Okay, I'll try and keep my comments brief. So the sewer options have not changed since we presented them to you 2 weeks ago. Option 1 was a 5% increase for FY25. Option 2 was no rate change for FY25. Sewer is in a little bit of a different financial situation than the water fund. The retained earnings are extremely healthy by comparison. However, we've seen a dip in revenues the last few years. That's in part because there were decreases the last 2 years, but also we've seen a decrease in sewer flow in the recent past, possibly related to the properties on South Street. Just like with water, there's additional capital in the capital plan compared to when we did this analysis a year ago. A lot more projected debt related to that. So we are showing some large anticipated deficits the next few years for the sewer fund. Now, there is enough retained earnings to cover those, but that means the retained earnings would start dwindling because of that. So any rate action would help mitigate the use of retained earnings and help keep them healthy going forward.
What if we lowered the rate? What if we cut the rate?
Well, last year it was 0%, I believe.
The rates decreased 5% each of the last 2 years.
What if we did a third?
We have not run that for you this year.
If we have healthy retained earnings now and we cut 5% out, will we still have reasonable retained earnings, do you think?
The retained earnings would still be healthy at that point, but with the projected expenses coming down the next few years, it presumably would mean some higher increases in the subsequent years than what we're showing currently.
Right now, the projection is 5% every year for the next 5 years, correct?
Yes, that is our recommended rate plan. So as just mentioned, 5% annually is what we're currently recommending. So if there's no action, we're showing 6.5% in the subsequent years. If there would be a decrease, then presumably those numbers would be higher.
Anybody want to make a motion on the sewer rates?
I make the motion to approve the sewer rates as proposed.
At a 0% or a 5% increase? There was two options.
I would go 0%.
At 0%.
I second that.
And that was one of the options, correct?
That was one of the options presented, yes.
And that leaves our retained earnings healthy, reasonably healthy. Okay. Motion on the table in a second to go with 0% for the sewer rate increase or not increase, as the case may be. Any further discussion?
Just one quick question. So we have about 4,000 households on town water. How many on both water and sewer?
I'd be guessing. Go ahead, Eric.
Through the chair, there's roughly about 1,400 sewer connections.
Okay, thank you. So it would help them a little bit.
Some, yeah, third.
Yeah.
Was there a second to the motion?
There was a motion and a second, I thought, yeah, thank you. Any further discussion? Motion on the table is a 0% increase.
I can go either way on this, but I like the 5% every year, that it's easy and predictable for everyone. You know, we'll do 0% now, but it'll be more every other year after. So anyway, but I'll go either way.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion on the table for a 0% increase, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous and so carries. We'll go 0% on the sewer. Okay?
And there are 2 additional motions on the discounts.
Yeah, we have 2 more.
Just for the low-income discounts, senior citizens.
Do you want me to just make the motion, or you want to discuss?
Let's start with the motions first.
Okay, so I would move to implement a discount of up to $200 per year on sewer enterprise bills for residential sewer system users who receive property tax exemptions from the Hopkinton Board of Assessors under clauses 17, 22, 37, and 41 of Section 5 and Chapter 59 of the Mass General Laws for FY25, effective July 1st, 2024, and for residents who receive the Hopkinton means-tested senior citizen property tax exemption tied to the Massachusetts Circuit Breaker credit.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Senior citizen discount to help them as these rates go up. Everybody good? Mm-hmm. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous and so carries. There's the next motion.
I move to implement a discount of up to $200 per year on water enterprise bills for residential water system users who receive property tax exemptions from the Hopkinton Board of Assessors under clauses 17, 22, 37, and 41 of Section 5 and Chapter 59 of the Mass General Laws for FY25, effective July 1st, 2024, and for residents who receive the Hopkinton means-tested senior citizen property tax exemption tied to the Massachusetts Circuit Breaker tax credit.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the table. I have a quick question. Is this is budgeted based on the rates that we just talked about in general, like assuming this was going to go through? Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay, so the answer is yes. Thank you. Okay, great. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous and so carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all very much. We have one other topic that may be of interest to you on the agenda, which is next, which is, sorry, I lost my place here. Water and Sewer Advisory Board Commission, item number 12. So this is one that I've been talking about a little bit, so I'll just introduce it. This is one that, you know, I think what we just went through is an example of why I think this might help. You know, I wouldn't suggest that I'm a water or sewer expert. I'm not sure anybody else feels that they are on the board. This is a entity, a commission, a board that Hopkinton had for a long time, and then somehow along the way it got disbanded and rolled into the select board, and we just went through sort of flying blind, like we do every year, what we have to do with our water and sewer enterprise funds. I think you add to that opportunity or challenge or opportunity to improve the PFAS work that Mr. Mann and others have done a lot of over the last year or so. And then you add to that the MWRA interconnection possibility in the tens of millions of dollars that would cost the community if we go down that path. And there's a ton of work in our water and sewer worlds these days. So I'm advocating, and I've done this for the last few months before I came back to the board, that we reestablish a water and sewer advisory board to tackle those four things: PFAS, MWRA, annual rates, you know, annual projects, the whole lot, you know, infrastructure, et cetera. But have 5 expertise, or whatever the number of people it is, experts in the community sit on that committee appointed by us and make recommendations to us, along with our colleagues from Abrams Group and along with Carrie and Eric and others. So that's why it's on the agenda. I think it would make a lot of sense to reinstitute this committee I'm just curious if other board members are curious about doing so. I don't think we can solve any of it tonight if we decide it's of interest. But I do think, I would just add, like, I know you did the PFAS thing, and that's a huge piece of it, and that's causing some of this cost situation too. Not it's causing it, but just, you know, the infrastructure needs. Adding those other 3 criteria to that commission, I think would make a lot of sense, because it's all going hand in hand. We heard at the PFAS thing that they're testing our wastewater treatment plant to figure out what's going on with PFAS. So sewer and water are tied together, and, you know, I think there's a reason why we could put all that into one organization. Any thoughts? Mr. Manning?
Yeah, no, I think I agree. These are all related, and as we have discussed a few moments ago about the rates and the pain that we are seeing on aging infrastructure all over. So bundling it all together, and the proposal I had was intending towards more solving the infrastructure problems and especially focusing on PFAS, and help us understand the options and advise us on that, doing the research analysis, and we have to make agreements. We already have quite a bit with our neighboring towns and state, a lot of work involved just on that. And then it impacts the rates, as we have seen, and it will continue to impact the rates. So I like the idea of expanding the scope. I just want to make sure that we have enough focus on the PFAS component itself, because that is going to be the big part in many ways for the next 3-5 years at least until we solve that. But I like the idea. I think we can combine it, the scope and charter together and form one body. So what I would propose, Mr. Chair, is if you want to take some time, we could work towards building the framework that I proposed and incorporating the scope expansion that you are proposing. I like those, and form like a comprehensive charter that then we can bring to the board for consideration and final vote and formation.
Great.
If that sounds okay.
That sounds great. Ms. Lafreniere?
I think that when we put these boards together, or this board, it's going to be very important on how we pick the people that are on the boards. We really need someone from the legislature, someone from commercial, industrial, and someone, you know, and someone from the town at large, and we need professionals on this commission, and not just throw it out there and have anybody apply. Of course, anybody will be able to apply, but we really need to. When I was on economic development in Franklin, we had a big contingent from commercial. We had, I was on the legislature. We had the town legislature plus me as a state legislator, and a lot of from different walks, and I think this is the kind of thing that we really need, that kind of representation, because we're going to be looking for funds from other places.
Okay.
Big time.
Joe?
I'm supportive of this. You know, I love the discussion that's been had already, expanding the scope, making sure all those things, because they're all tied in together. They're all critical for this town. I mean, it's water that we're talking about. We have to get this right over the next couple of years, so fully supportive.
Thank you. Mrs. Ritterbusch?
I have mixed feelings about it. I don't want to create more bureaucracy unless it will be helpful. I think I would recommend that we wait and not vote on this exactly tonight until we have like an idea of a framework and a charge and the components of people who would be on it. And feedback from staff, and if other towns are doing this, and did it help, or did it? I don't want to slow down solving the PFAS problem by creating more bureaucracy. But if town staff thinks it would be an asset and would be helpful, then I think that would be great. But because we didn't have a charge or any other documents in the packet to explain exactly what it would do, or, you know, we did have one in the past.
Yeah, I totally agree with that approach. I don't think tonight's intention should be to try and vote anything other than introduce it publicly, formally. Like I've been talking about it, right, for months around town, doing other things, but now it's time to kind of get down to the business of running it. And I do think that as Mr. Mann suggested, getting together over the next couple of weeks and laying out the framework and talking about what the body would look like and the charge and so forth, and then bringing that back to the board, massaging it for another meeting or two, and then maybe, hopefully this fall sometime, we can get into like actually getting going on it. But I agree with you not to do something tonight. Okay? So is everybody good with that? We're going to table it, work on it on the side. Maybe Mrs. Lazarus can help a little bit in some of this work on pulling it together in a document that we can try to build out, and we'll go from there.
I also recommend reaching out to DPW leadership as well. See how they can benefit from this.
Yeah, that'd be great. Excellent idea. Okay, so we'll leave that there for now. Move to item number 13, which is the Main Street Corridor Project Liaison. This is another one that's on my list that I wanted to get on here very quickly. It's to select board to discuss appointing one of its members as special liaison to the Main Street Corridor Project. I have not been mincing my words about this the last few months. I think we need to push. I think we need to push hard on Eversource, on Amarillo, on MassDOT, on whoever else is involved. I don't see this as getting into the day-to-day operations of town government, because this is not town government. This is an entity that town government is working with, trying to get things done, and we're still looking at the same thing we were looking at the beginning of this year and at the end of last year, and not much after, midsummer last year. So I would like to be the one appointed to that, if everyone would be so kind. It's what I do for a living. I buy 220 transformers a year at work. I know the transformer world. I know the whole thing. And I know how to talk to contractors. So that is the suggestion on the table. This is something I would like to make a decision on. It's either a yes or no. Go ahead and do it, Brian. But I think it's an important piece of the puzzle, because they're supposed to be coming back. They were going to come back on the 19th. Now they're coming back after July 4th. Already the need to go raise a little heck with these folks.
Okay. I move to appoint Brian Herr as board liaison to the Mass Street Corridor Project.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second on the table to appoint me to serve as a special liaison for the Main Street Corridor Project. Any further discussion?
I guess along the lines of the other one, will it be written up exactly what the role of the Main Street?
I just told you what it is. Go raise hell.
Okay, but just, we are not supposed to interfere with day-to-day
This
operations.
is not the government. This is not the town government. This is a project, right? It's not us. I'm not going to go raise hell with Elaine. I'm going to go raise hell with Joe Amarillo, whom I've met, and I know Joe, and Joe needs to get his guys back out here. He's been telling us he's going to come back out here, and they haven't come back out here.
Right, we're all frustrated.
Right. So this is not a big bureaucratic process. It's just me sitting in that meeting with Joe saying, Joe, I represent the board and I represent the town. What are you doing? I'm just pushing them. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the enthusiasm, and any and all help we can add to it is better. And to Amy's point, I think you answered it. We want to kind of balance, how the operational role gets into it. One thing I wanted to understand, so it would be a liaison to the current project, so you'll be working with the project manager and be the voice for the transformers, for example, going to Eversource. How do you kind of define it? Just to understand the logistics a little bit.
So Joe Nolan is the president and CEO of Eversource, and I would get with Senator Spilka's office, and I would request a meeting with Joe Nolan, and I want to know why his transformers that are coming in that have been for this project got moved to another project. And if we do that every week, after a while, he's going to get sick and tired of me calling his office and saying, where are my transformers? And he's all of a sudden going to find us transformers somewhere, because they are shipping. They're shipping to me. I know that. They're shipping, right? So for whatever reason, they're redirecting, I think. It happens in the industry for a lot of different reasons. And it's those types of things I would do. I would do it always with class and dignity. I mean, I'm in this profession. I know how to talk to these folks. But if there's not a squeaky wheel, we are not going to get any traction here. This is just going to linger on for another couple of years. They've already extended the contract another year. So we're out to July of 25 right now. And I'd like to think we can pull that back in. If we can't get the transformers, we can't get the transformers. But we can get the bricks in the road, and we can get the trees up, and we can get all these orange cones out of here that we don't need because they're just sitting out here all day. And I run by them every morning. There's no reason for them out there right now. So there's a lot of things we can do to clean this up and really start to show the residents what it's going to be like. The transformers are going to be a problem. There's no magic wand here. But I do think if we push, we can get something done.
No, thank you again, and thank you for volunteering. And one last question is, you'd also be communicating back to us on the progress or any challenges or anything we can help with, or any other, change in plans, if, for that matter.
Whenever the town manager does her town manager report, and it's always Main Street Corridor first, I'll chime right in at that time too. She and I will be in communication about what I'm doing.
Oh, sounds good. Thank you for volunteering.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, there's a motion on the table and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous and so carries. Thank you. Item number 14, town manager report. Ms. Lazarus, Main Street
Wait a
Corridor.
minute. There's more liaison assignments.
Yeah, that's not yet. That's 15. We're going to do that after Elaine's 14 right here.
Oh, different.
14, town manager report. Elaine, Main Street Corridor project, please.
Yep, so just quickly, as you mentioned, MassDOT signed a contract extension for the utility work through July 1st of 2025, largely due to the lack of transformers. Eversource is on site now, working on the overhead utility line transfer work, and is 60 to 70% complete. And as long as the utility companies respond and are on site in a timely and sequential order, the goal is that by the end of September, all of the overhead transfers will be complete, and the old poles will be removed. That's on the west side of the project, where it's not going underground. And also, Amarillo is targeting to be on site after July 4th. They'll begin work on the south side of the project. That will include brickwork, sidewalk work, curbing, landscaping, and underground utility connections from the property lines to building foundations and into buildings as required. And the utility companies will continue to work on the north side. So they'll be work on the south and work on the north. And there probably will be some traffic delays.
Okay.
No update on the PFAS this week, and not really much to say in addition on the MWI interconnection project. We have some meetings coming up that have been scheduled with Southborough. And that's it.
All right. Any questions for the town manager? Set? All set?
Yep.
Okay, item number 15, please. Liaison reports, board invites. Any liaison reports? Mr. Manning?
Nothing much. I think we had some good events, and the interfaith went very well.
Microphone, please.
Sure. Not a whole lot. I attended the interfaith event, so did Amy. It went very well. And I think there were quite a few other events, including the Pride Parade, which also was well attended. And in terms of the liaison, the ESBC is meeting tonight, and I'll get to know more probably afterwards and get back. But it's tracking, and there are some payments that we had to approve, so they met tonight, and they're approving that. But overall, it's going per plan. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Mary Jo.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at the new sheet, and I've got some different assignments, but most things are the same. I don't have as many as I had last year, so that's one thing. But I will say that I did attend the Alpha and Omega and the 26.2 Foundation Scholarship Awards the other night for the essays. And they had 6 students from Ashland, 6 students from Hopkinton, and they were amazing. I mean, these kids did brilliant essays, and they had excerpts on big panels all around the room. It was just very enlightening, and the future's in good hands if these kids have anything to do with it. They were brilliant. And just one other thing, I guess some people haven't filled out their assignment yet. I've got 7. Last year I had 9. It's a little hard to know what you're doing, but I really would like to be reappointed to the Metro West Regional Transit Authority. I have enjoyed that very much in the past year or 2.
So, hang on one sec, please. So, any other liaison reports? We'll come back to that one point.
Not at the moment, no.
All right, Joe, liaison reports, just not that yet?
No.
No. Because you don't have any yet. Well, not officially. Amy.
Yeah, just to echo what Shai Jewel said, the interfaith event at the new, let's see, it's
At the new mosque.
I guess mosque is the right word, on the corner of West Elm that we opted not to change the zoning for last year. So it was really nice to see how they had done some renovations, and they were very welcoming. And then for planning board, they met, I think it was last night, and they're still working on the MBTA zoning act thing, and they talked, didn't make any decisions, but about perhaps doing a plan that was a little bit more paper compliance, that very likely to be built, and maybe that would be very unlikely to be built, and that maybe that would be easier to pass at town meeting. But they floated that idea. I don't think there's anything final yet on that.
Anything else? Okay, I don't have any to report. As you saw, I'm not signed up for anything just yet. I think what we need to do with liaisons in general, Mrs. Lazarus, is can we get some help from the office for everybody to call in and explain what they would like to do and check it off and build a master sheet, and then we'll try to figure out where there's conflicts. Like if you see when you want to be fire and someone else is named by fire, okay, well, you still would put your name there, and then we'll figure out where there's a duplicate, and we'll sort through that together as a board. That's the best way to do this.
I think that's what this was.
Mary and Joe and I,
Well, I didn't do
and
it.
Joe, I think Joe too, we all did that.
Yeah, so we all selected a.
Yeah.
You guys did great. I did nothing. Fine. Fair enough. Fair
So
point.
there's your answer.
There's
All the
your
blank,
answer.
all the blank
All my
ones go to
fault.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I sent mine today as well.
And I saw some come in for you. I think the school committee one is an excellent idea. I know that's a big one and there's some time there, but if that's of interest, I think that would probably make sense, right, for a lot of different reasons. So
So if you pick yours, then you can.
someone needs to call me and work this out.
And there is only one conflict at the moment, so.
Yeah, so I'm seeing that. So Shadul, did you have Parks and Rec last year?
I did not. Irfan had that.
Okay, if you, I think that's the only conflict you're referring to. If you'd like to have that, I think, I brought this up a little bit last time, I'd like to get the DPW one. I know we're talking about this commission for water and sewer focus, but there's still a lot of other road work projects maintenance that the town's responsible for. It's a large department. I'd like to recommend adding that. I'd put myself in there.
Sorry, there is no DPW committee per se, but you asked for the library, which I also had. I think as much as I love the library, if you want that, I can.
Okay, thank you.
Accommodate that, yeah.
So there are some departments where we have a liaison to the department, even though there's not a board per se. Like we have a liaison for police, we have a liaison for fire.
Right.
And library and other those things like that. So we can have a liaison to the DPW, but I wouldn't want to duplicate what we may do with water and sewer enterprise funds and so forth, right? So
Again, I think like the scope of it can shift, right? But I think it's one of our largest budgeted departments. So I think it gives an opportunity to where we can help message things that are going on, in Kerry's world. So we can always be fluid with it, after the fact, but I'd like to get it on there to start.
I appreciate that. I was just thinking to our earlier point, I mean, is the liaison kind of for existing framework, or we can add? If we can, I mean, why not? Absolutely. But the other thing is we're also talking about this framework for a body, oversight governing body, that may actually eventually do the work that you're proposing to do. But I think that's a good idea, and I would certainly support it.
we could probably break it out at that time and sort
That's
through
what I
that.
mean, because again, there's like road work, maintenance that's separate from water and
Oh, I
sewer.
see.
So you know what I mean? So we can cover all the bases in the short term,
Yeah.
divvy up what we need to later on.
Let's talk, you and I, about the liaison assignments. Let's make sure everybody gets what they're interested in. I don't know if yours are checked off on that sheet today or not. Looks like the email came in, right? So let's make sure.
I did add them, yeah.
Is that there? I'm just so far behind on this one. Not unusual when it comes to this particular topic. Okay, so everybody good with liaisons, where we're headed, how we'll sort this out, and I will pick up the ones everybody else kind of is not as eager to grab. And we'll go from there. All right? And I did do MWRA for years and years, but if you want to do that, continue with that, I'm all for it.
This is my last year. You can have it next year.
Yeah. I did 7 years with that, I think. Anyway.
I liked it.
Future board agenda items, they're still here. I did just cross off item number 7 because we took care of that this evening. The others we've either talked about, we're going to be coming back to, or we haven't talked about yet, but they are front of mind, and I do look at these, and I know Elaine looks at them as we're building the agendas, and we're just trying to tick them off here as we go. So please hang in there with us. We'll continue to get through them. I didn't check off number 8, which is establish a Water and Sewer Advisory Committee. We've talked about it, but to Amy's point, we haven't really set it up yet, so I don't want to take it off the list just yet. Okay, and with that, and I'm sorry we're 35 minutes late, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move the motion to adjourn.
Your second.
Second.
Hearing no discussion, all those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, we're adjourned. Thank you very much. Do we have anything to sign this evening?